There is a certain comfort in old stories told slowly in the dark, in letting a familiar voice carry you gently through tales you half know already, asking nothing of you but that you lie still and listen and drift. And there are few richer wells of such stories than the long dark history of the caped hero of Gotham. More than 80 years of tales told and retold, some frightening and some tender, some tragic and some strangely gentle, all of them shadowed and beautiful and perfect for the quiet hours before sleep. Tonight, slowly and softly and in no hurry at all, we are going to wander through several of the greatest of these stories, one after another, retelling them gently, letting them carry you off into sleep, and we are going to do it calmly, because although the hero's world is a dark one, it is also, in the end, only a story, only ink and shadow and make-believe, and there is nothing in any of it that can follow you here, into the warm and ordinary quiet of your own room. So settle in now, and make yourself comfortable, and pull the blankets up, and if this kind of slow, quiet wander through the old dark stories is the sort of thing that helps you fall asleep, you might leave a gentle like before you drift away, and perhaps tell me down in the comments where in the world you are listening from tonight, and then just let all of it go, and let me tell you, softly and slowly, a night full of stories about the dark night of Gotham. Let us begin at the beginning, with the story of how it all started, for every great tale must have its first chapter, and the first chapter of the hero's story is the story of his beginning, of the year he first became the Bat. Picture a young man, not yet the legend he would become, returning at last to the great dark city of his birth, after long years away, years spent wandering the world, training his body and his mind, preparing himself, though he scarcely knew for what. He had left the city as a grieving boy, his parents murdered before his eyes in a dark alley, and he returns now as a young man, hardened and skilled and driven, but still uncertain, still searching for the shape his war on crime should take. The city he returns to is a rotten place, corrupt from top to bottom, its police as crooked as its criminals, its officials bought and paid for, its ordinary people ground down beneath the weight of it all. And into this rotten city comes, at the same time as the returning young man, another figure who will matter enormously to his story, an honest police detective newly arrived from another city, a decent man with a tired face and a stubborn conscience, who has come to Gotham to do good and finds himself surrounded by corruption on every side. These two men, the young would-be hero and the honest detective, do not yet know each other, but their fates are already bound together, and the story of the hero's beginning is really the story of the two of them. The young man's first attempts to fight the city's crime are clumsy, uncertain, nearly disastrous, for he goes out into the night in a simple disguise and finds that he is not yet the figure of terror he needs to be, that the criminals do not fear him, that he is nearly killed for his troubles. He comes home wounded and discouraged, sitting alone in the great dark house of his family, bleeding and doubting, wondering how he can possibly become the thing the city needs, the thing that will strike fear into the hearts of the wicked. And it is in this moment of doubt, this low point, that the story gives him his answer, in one of the most famous images in all of the mythology. For as he sits there, bleeding and despairing, a great bat crashes suddenly through the window of the old house, a dark winged shape bursting in out of the night, and the young man, startled, looks at it, and something turns over in his mind. He had feared bats as a child, had fallen as a boy into a dark cave full of them, and in that old childhood fear he suddenly sees his answer, sees the shape his war must take, sees that he must become the very thing that frightened him, must make of his own fear a weapon, must become a bat, a creature of the night, a thing of terror to strike fear into the cowardly and superstitious criminals of his city. And so, in that moment, the bat is born. The honest detective, meanwhile, wages his own lonely war against the corruption of the police, refusing to take the bribes, refusing to look away, making enemies of his crooked colleagues and his crooked superiors, standing almost alone as a point of decency in a rotten department. He is threatened, beaten, endangered, his family put at risk, and yet he will not bend, will not break, will not become like the men around him. And there is a real heroism in his stubborn honesty, a quiet courage, as great in its way as any the caped hero will show. The two of them, the bat above the streets and the honest cop within the department, are fighting the same rot from two different directions. At first, the detective distrusts the strange new masked figure, sees him as a dangerous vigilante, a criminal himself, and the police hunt the bat as they hunt any other lawbreaker. But slowly, across the year, the two men come to understand each other, to recognize in each other a shared enemy and a shared decency, to form the beginning of the great alliance that will define them both for the rest of their lives. There is a slow and careful building of trust between them, a recognition that they are on the same side, and by the end of the year they have become, if not yet friends, then allies, partners in the long war against the darkness of their city. The story of the hero's first year is full of small famous moments, of his early fumbling triumphs and near disasters, of his first encounters with the figures who will fill his life, of the slow forging of the legend he will become. There is a young woman who prowls the same rooftops, a thief with her own reasons for taking to the night, who will become one of the hero's great and complicated loves. There are the corrupt officials the hero and the detective bring down together. There is the growing fear the bat inspires in the city's criminals, the legend beginning to spread, the whisper in the underworld of a dark winged thing that hunts the guilty. And the story ends not with a grand victory, but with a quiet beginning, with the hero and the detective, their alliance forged, standing ready at last to face the greater darkness that is coming, the theatrical madmen who will rise to meet the theatrical hero, the first whisper of a certain laughing man who is about to make his terrible debut. It is a beginning rather than an ending, the story of the first year, the forging of the hero and the detective and their alliance, the birth of the legend, and it is a fitting place for us to begin our night of stories, with the beginning of everything, the year the bat was born. Let us turn now to the next story, the tale of how the hero first met the enemy who would haunt him for the rest of his life, the laughing man, the clown, the deadliest and strangest of all his foes. It comes not long after the hero's first year, when he is still new to his war, still learning what his city holds, and it begins with a horror that announces the arrival of a new kind of criminal entirely, a killer unlike any the city has seen before. For one evening, the frightened citizens of Gotham, watching their televisions, see their broadcast interrupted by a ghastly white face with a red grin, a laughing figure who announces, calmly and cheerfully, that he will murder a series of the city's prominent citizens, naming them and the times of their deaths, and daring anyone to stop him. At first, no one takes the threat entirely seriously, for such a thing had never happened. Such theatrical madness was new to the world, and the police assume it is some crank, some hoax. But then the first named victim dies, exactly when the laughing man said they would, and the manner of the death is horrifying, for the victim is found with a terrible frozen grin fixed upon their face, killed by some strange poison that leaves its victims laughing in death. And the city realizes, with dawning terror, that the laughing man is real, that his threats are real, that a new and unimaginable kind of killer has come to Gotham. The hero takes up the case, for this is exactly the kind of horror he exists to fight, and he sets his brilliant mind to the terrible puzzle of the laughing killer, trying to understand who he is, and how he strikes, and how he might be stopped before the next named victim dies. It is a desperate race, for the killer has named his victims and the times of their deaths, and the hero must reason out how the poison is delivered, must protect the named citizens, must anticipate a mind that seems to delight in death, to treat murder as a game, to kill for no reason but the pleasure of it and the terror it spreads. There is a genuine dread that hangs over this story, for the laughing man is unlike any criminal the hero has faced, without motive, without reason, without any of the ordinary human wants that make a criminal predictable. He does not kill for money or for power or for revenge, but simply for the joy of it, for the chaos, for the terror, and this makes him almost impossible to understand or to anticipate, a creature of pure malicious whimsy. And the hero, for all his brilliance, finds himself struggling against a mind that follows no logic he can recognize, a killer who kills for laughter. Across the story, the two of them circle each other, the ordered mind of the hero against the chaotic genius of the killer, the man of reason against the agent of madness, and it is established here, in this first encounter, the whole shape of the enmity that will define them both forever. For the hero comes to understand that the laughing man is not merely a criminal to be caught, but something deeper and more terrible, a kind of dark reflection of himself, a creature of theatre and terror just as the hero is, but turned entirely toward chaos and death, where the hero is turned toward order and protection. They are opposites, and they are bound together, and each will define the other for the rest of their lives. The hero does stop him, in the end, does unravel the method of the poison and protect the remaining victims and run the laughing man to ground, but there is no true victory in it, for the killer is not defeated so much as merely caught, locked away to escape again another day, and the hero understands, even in his triumph, that this enemy is different, that this one will return, that their terrible dance has only just begun. The laughing man is taken away laughing, unrepentant, already planning his next horror, and the hero is left with the chilling knowledge that he has made an enemy for life, a foe who will haunt him forever. It is a dark story, this first meeting of the hero and his greatest enemy, and yet there is a strange fascination in it, the fascination of watching two great opposites meet for the first time, of seeing the beginning of the most famous rivalry in all the mythology, the ordered hero and the chaotic clown, bound together from this first terrible case forever after. And there is a comfort, even in the darkness, in knowing how it all began, in seeing the first chapter of the long dark dance between the bat and the clown, the beginning of an enmity that would define them both across all the long years to come. Let us turn now to one of the most famous and most haunting of all the stories, a dark and thoughtful tale that asks a terrible question about the human mind, about how thin the line might be between sanity and madness, between an ordinary decent person and a monster. It is one of the great stories of the laughing man, and it is really a story about a single, terrible idea, The idea that any of us, any person at all, however good, however sane, might be driven to madness by one truly bad day, by one moment of unbearable suffering, and that this is all that separates the ordinary person from the lunatic. It is the laughing man's own philosophy, and the whole story is his attempt to prove it true. The story opens with the hero visiting his enemy in the asylum, coming at last to talk to the laughing man, to try, in a weary and hopeless way, to reach him, to reason with him, to find some way to end the endless dance of violence between them before it kills them both. But the man in the cell is not the laughing man at all, the hero discovers, only an imposter, a stand-in, for the real one has escaped again, is loose in the city, is already setting in motion his most terrible scheme yet, and the hero is left standing in the empty cell, knowing that his enemy is free again, that something awful is coming, that the dance is not over, but only beginning again. The laughing man's scheme, when it unfolds, is aimed at the hero's oldest ally, the honest old police commissioner, and at the commissioner's daughter, a brave and brilliant young woman who has become, in her own right, a hero of the city. For the laughing man means to prove his terrible philosophy by taking an ordinary good man, the commissioner, and driving him mad through one unbearable day of suffering, showing that even the best and sanest of people can be broken, can be made as mad as the laughing man himself, given enough pain. And to begin this terrible experiment, he first strikes at the commissioner through his daughter, in a moment of sudden and shocking violence that shatters the young woman's life. We will not dwell on the cruelty of that moment, for it is dark, and this is a gentle telling, but it is enough to say that the laughing man harms the commissioner's daughter grievously, and takes the commissioner himself captive, and subjects the old man to a long and terrible ordeal designed to break his mind, to prove that even this good and decent man can be driven mad by sufficient suffering. The laughing man torments the commissioner through the long day, trying with all his terrible ingenuity to shatter the old man's sanity, to make him snap, to prove that madness is only one bad day away for anyone at all. But here the story turns, for the commissioner does not break. Through all the terrible ordeal, through all the suffering the laughing man inflicts, the old man holds on to his sanity, holds on to his decency, holds on to his belief that things must be done properly, by the law, with justice and not vengeance. When the hero finally arrives to rescue him, the commissioner, battered and broken in body but not in mind, insists that the laughing man be taken in properly, by the book, unharmed, to show him that their way, the way of law and decency, is stronger than his way of madness and cruelty. The old man's refusal to break is his victory, and it disproves the laughing man's whole terrible philosophy. For this is the heart of the story, the disproving of the laughing man's idea, the demonstration that a good and decent person need not be broken by suffering, that sanity and decency can hold even against the most terrible pain, that we are not all just one bad day away from madness. The commissioner suffered as much as anyone could suffer, and he did not break, did not become a monster, held on to his goodness through it all, and in doing so, he proved the laughing man wrong, proved that the line between the good person and the monster is not so thin as the laughing man believed, that decency is stronger than the clown imagines. The story also offers, in its quiet moments, a possible glimpse of the laughing man's own origin, a story of how he might have become what he is, told in flashbacks that weave through the present-day horror. It shows a man who was once ordinary, a struggling comedian, a failure, a man with a pregnant wife and no money, and a desperate hope of providing for his family, who was drawn, against his better judgment, into a criminal scheme, and who suffered, on one terrible day, a cascade of losses and horrors so complete that they broke him and remade him, in a vat of chemicals, into the Laughing Man. It is the Laughing Man's own bad day, the day that made him, offered as evidence for his philosophy even as the Commissioner disproves it. And yet the story is careful never to confirm this origin, for the Laughing Man himself, telling it, admits that he is not sure it is true, that his own past has become uncertain to him, that if he must have a past, he prefers it to be multiple choice, and so even this glimpse of his beginning dissolves into uncertainty, leaving the Laughing Man as much a mystery at the end as at the beginning, his origin unconfirmed, his true self unknown, a blank at the heart of the story, which is perhaps exactly as it should be, for the Laughing Man is finally not a man with a history but a force, an idea, a question that has no answer. The story ends with one of the most famous and most debated scenes in all of the mythology, a quiet moment between the hero and the Laughing Man after the horror is over, the two of them alone in the rain, and the hero, weary and sorrowful, reaches out one last time to his enemy, offers to help him, to try to save him, to end the endless violence before it destroys them both. And the Laughing Man for a moment seems almost moved, almost reachable, and he tells the hero a joke, a strange, sad little joke about two men in an asylum trying to escape, and the two of them, the hero and the villain, laugh together in the rain, a shared and terrible laughter, and the story ends there, on that ambiguous and haunting note, the two great enemies laughing together in the dark. What that ending means, whether the hero finally reaches the Laughing Man or fails to, whether there is any hope for them or none, is left forever open, debated endlessly by those who love the story, and it is fitting that it should be so, for the story is finally about the deepest and most unanswerable questions, about madness and sanity and suffering, and whether we are all, in the end, just one bad day from the abyss. It is a dark story, and a thoughtful one, and beneath its darkness there is a strange hope, the hope proved by the unbroken Commissioner, that we are stronger than the darkness believes, that decency can hold, that we need not break, and it is a fine and thoughtful thing to carry gently towards sleep. Let us turn now to a gentler and sadder story, one of the most beloved of all the hero's tales, the story of a man of ice and the love that froze his heart, a tale of grief and vengeance, and a sorrow so deep it turned a man cold. It is the origin of one of the hero's most tragic enemies, a brilliant scientist whose whole terrible story begins not in evil but in love, in a love so great and a loss so cruel that they made a monster out of a good man, and it is one of the most moving stories in the whole mythology, a villain's tale that is really a love story, a crime story that is really about grief. Once, the story tells us, there was a gifted scientist, a quiet and gentle man devoted to his work, and above all to his wife, a woman he loved with all his heart. But his beloved wife fell ill with a terrible and incurable disease, and the scientist, unable to bear the thought of losing her, and unwilling to let her die while there was any hope, made a desperate choice. He would freeze her, would place her in a state of frozen suspension, would stop her dying and hold her, preserved, at the very edge of death, while he worked to find a cure for her illness, so that one day, when a cure was found, he might wake her and heal her and have her back again. He loved her that much, the scientist, that he would freeze her and give his whole life to finding a way to save her. And there is a terrible tenderness in it, in a love so great it would reach even into death to hold on to the beloved. But his work was expensive, and his employers, a cold and greedy corporation, wished to shut it down. And one day, the corporation's cruel executive came to stop the scientist's work by force, and in the struggle that followed, there was a terrible accident, and the scientist was doused in the freezing chemicals of his own laboratory and changed forever. The accident did not kill him, but it transformed him, altering his body so that he could no longer survive in ordinary warmth, so that he could live only in extreme cold, could exist only inside a special suit that kept him frozen, could never again feel the warmth of the sun or the touch of another person's hand. The gentle scientist was remade by the accident into a man of ice, a creature who could live only in the cold, cut off forever from the warmth of the world, and worse still, his beloved wife, her frozen preservation disrupted by the same disaster, was lost to him, her fate uncertain, taken from him along with everything else. And so the gentle scientist became a villain, a cold and calculating criminal in a suit of ice. But his villainy is not the ordinary villainy of greed or power or madness. For everything he does, every crime he commits, is driven by two things only: his grief for his lost wife and his cold fury at the cruel executive who destroyed them both. He is a villain made entirely of sorrow, a monster made of grief, and the coldness of his body is only the outward sign of the coldness that his loss has brought into his heart, the freezing of a soul that once was warm, the turning of a loving man into a creature of ice by the cruelty of the world. The hero, encountering this man of ice, comes to understand his story, comes to see the grief beneath the villainy, the love beneath the crimes, and there is a deep sympathy in the way the story treats its tragic villain, a recognition that he is not evil but broken, not wicked but grieving, a good man turned cold by an unbearable loss. The hero opposes him, must stop his crimes, and yet he pities him too, understands him, sees in him not a monster to be hated, but a sorrow to be mourned, a love turned to ice by the cruelty of the world. There is a famous and heartbreaking line at the heart of the story, spoken by the man of ice as he remembers his lost wife, a quiet reflection on how he would give anything, endure anything, to have her back, to feel again the warmth he has lost. And it captures the whole sorrow of him, the whole tragedy, the love that survives even in the frozen heart, the warmth that he longs for and can never again feel, the beloved he has lost and cannot stop grieving. He is a villain, and yet his crime is only love, love turned to grief, grief turned to ice, and there are few sadder stories in all the mythology. The story does not end in triumph or in tragedy exactly, but in a kind of sorrowful suspension, much like the frozen wife herself, for the man of ice is stopped but not cured, defeated but not destroyed, left to carry on his cold and grieving existence, still searching, still mourning, still longing for the warmth he cannot have and the wife he cannot save. His story does not resolve, for to resolve it, to cure his wife, or to let her die, would be to end the grief that defines him, and so he remains suspended forever in his sorrow, the man of ice, grieving eternally for his frozen love. It is a beautiful and terribly sad story, this tale of the man of ice, and it is beloved precisely for its sorrow, for the way it finds, in a villain, such depths of love and grief, for the way it reminds us that even the coldest heart may be frozen only because it once loved so warmly. There is a deep tenderness in it, beneath the sorrow, and it is one of the gentlest of all the dark stories, a villain's tale that breaks the heart, and it is a fine and melancholy thing to carry towards sleep. The story of the gentle scientist and his frozen love, and the grief that turned his heart to ice. Let us turn now to the story of another of the Laughing Man's victims, though this one is a victim of a stranger kind, for she is not killed or maimed, but seduced, drawn into his orbit, remade by her love for him into one of his greatest and most tragic accomplices. It is the story of how a bright and promising young woman, a doctor, threw away everything, her career, her sanity, her very self, out of love for the most dangerous man in the city. And it is one of the most fascinating and most heartbreaking origin stories in all the mythology. A story about love turned to madness, about devotion turned to self-destruction, about the terrible things we do for the people we love. She was, before her fall, a gifted young psychiatrist, ambitious and clever and eager to make her name, and she took a position at the great asylum where the city keeps its most dangerous madmen, hoping to study them, to understand them, to write the book that would make her famous. And among the patients she was assigned to study was the Laughing Man himself, the most notorious and most dangerous of all the asylum's inmates, and she saw in him the opportunity of a lifetime, the chance to understand the criminal mind at its most extreme, to unlock the secrets of the city's most infamous madman. She began to meet with him, the young doctor and the Laughing Man, session after session in the quiet of the asylum, and she meant to study him, to analyze him, to remain the detached professional observing her fascinating subject. But the Laughing Man is nothing if not a master manipulator, a genius of charm and deception, and slowly, session by session, he turned the tables on her, worked his way into her mind and her heart, told her sad stories of his supposedly tragic past, made her pity him, made her care for him, made her, at last, fall in love with him. The doctor who had come to study the madman fell, instead, under his spell. There is a terrible and fascinating psychology in this, in the way the Laughing Man seduces the young doctor, exploiting her ambition and her compassion and her loneliness, telling her exactly what she needs to hear, making her feel that she alone understands him, that she alone can save him, that their love is something special and profound. And she believes it, throws herself into it, comes to love him with a desperate and total devotion, until she can no longer see him clearly, can no longer see the manipulation, can see only the man she loves and her desperate need to be with him and to save him. And so she falls, this bright young woman, falls completely, throwing away her career and her sanity and her whole former self, breaking the Laughing Man out of the asylum, taking up a costume and a new name, becoming his devoted accomplice, his partner in crime, his lover, remaking herself entirely in the image of her love for him. The promising young doctor becomes a painted jester, a figure of chaos and mischief, forever at the Laughing Man's side, forever devoted to him, forever throwing herself into his mad schemes out of love, having given up everything she was to be with the man she loves. But here is the tragedy at the heart of the story, the terrible truth she cannot see, that the Laughing Man does not love her, cannot love anyone, that her total devotion is met with cruelty and neglect and abuse, that she has given up everything for a man who treats her as a plaything, a tool, a joke. He mocks her, hurts her, throws her aside, values her only as long as she is useful, and discards her whenever he pleases. And she, blinded by her love, forgives him again and again, returns to him again and again, cannot bring herself to see that the love she has given everything for is entirely one-sided. There is a particular story that captures this tragedy perfectly, in which she comes so close to finally freeing herself, for she manages, on her own, through her own cleverness, to capture the hero, to accomplish the very thing the laughing man had never managed, to deliver to him the death of his greatest enemy as a gift, a proof of her love and her worth. And she is so happy, so proud, so sure that now, at last, he will love her, will value her, will see what she has done for him. But when the laughing man learns of it, he is not pleased but furious. Furious that she has succeeded where he failed, furious that she has stolen his moment, and in his jealous rage he turns on her, hurts her, casts her aside once more. It is a devastating moment, for it lays bare the whole terrible truth of their relationship, that he will never love her, will never value her, that her devotion is hopeless, that she has given everything for a man who will only ever hurt her. And she, cast aside once more, battered and broken, seems for a moment to finally see it, to finally understand, to finally resolve to leave him, to free herself, to reclaim her life. But the story ends by showing how deep the trap goes, for even after all of it, even after being hurt so terribly, she sees a single flower from him, a tiny gesture, and her heart melts again, and she forgives him again, and she is pulled back in again, unable, in the end, to break free. It is a heartbreaking story, and a disturbing one, for it is a clear-eyed portrait of a destructive love, of the way devotion can become a trap, of the way a person can give up everything for someone who will only ever hurt them and still be unable to leave. There is real pity in it, and real horror, and a real warning about the kind of love that destroys rather than nourishes. And it is one of the most psychologically acute stories in all the mythology, a tragic tale of love turned to madness and devotion turned to self-destruction. And yet there is, in the wider story of the painted jester across the years, a note of hope beyond this dark beginning, for in the long run of the tales she does, eventually, begin to break free, to find her own strength, to build a life apart from the man who hurt her, to become her own person at last. The story of her fall is dark, but it is not the end of her story. And there is a hope in that, in the possibility that even the deepest trap can eventually be escaped, that even the most destructive love can, in time, be left behind, that a person can find their way, at last, back to themselves. It is a dark story with a distant light, and it is a thoughtful thing to carry towards sleep. Let us turn now to one of the most painful and most important stories in all the mythology, the story of the hero's second son, the second boy to fight at his side, and of the terrible loss that haunted the hero for years, and of the stranger and more troubling return that followed. It is a story of grief and guilt and vengeance, one of the darkest chapters in the hero's long history, and it changed him, marked him, left a wound in him that never truly healed. It is the story of the boy the hero could not save. The boy was a troubled child when the hero found him, an angry, fierce, streetwise orphan caught trying to steal the very wheels off the hero's car, and the hero, seeing something of himself in the angry boy, seeing a child alone in a hard world, took him in, made him his ward, trained him, and in time made him the second to wear the bright colours and fight at his side. The boy was different from the first, harder, angrier, more reckless, quicker to violence, and the hero worried about him, tried to temper his rage, tried to guide him, but the boy's anger ran deep, the anger of an abandoned child, and it made him reckless, made him take risks, made him hard to protect. The boy's story took a fateful turn when he learned the truth about his own past, about the mother he had never known, and set out to find her, driven by the deep longing of the abandoned child for the parent who had left him. His search led him across the world, and at last to his birth mother, but it led him also, terribly, into the path of the Laughing Man, who was pursuing his own schemes in the same distant place, and the two of them, the boy and the clown, came together in a collision that would end in tragedy. For the Laughing Man captured the boy, and in one of the most shocking and terrible scenes in all the mythology, he beat the boy savagely and left him, along with his newly found mother, in a building rigged to explode. And though the hero raced to save them, he arrived too late, arriving only in time to find the building in ruins and the boy dead beneath the rubble. The hero had failed to save his son, had lost the boy he had taken in and trained and loved, and the grief and the guilt of it would haunt him for years, one of the great failures of his life, the wound that would not heal. We will not dwell on the cruelty of the boy's death, for it is dark, but it is enough to say that it devastated the hero, that he blamed himself entirely, that he kept the boy's costume in a glass case in his cave as a monument to his failure and his grief, a constant reminder of the son he could not save. The loss changed him, hardened him, deepened the darkness in him, and it added to his hatred of the Laughing Man a personal and terrible dimension, for the clown had murdered his son, and yet the hero, bound by his one unbreakable rule, did not kill him in return, could not, would not, and this restraint, this refusal to avenge his son even against the murderer, would come back to haunt him in ways he could not foresee. For years, the hero carried his grief, and the story might have ended there, a tale of loss and guilt and a wound that would not heal. But years later, something impossible happened, something that reopened the old wound in the strangest and most troubling way, for a new figure appeared in the city, a masked and ruthless vigilante who waged a violent war on the criminal underworld, killing where the hero would not kill, and who seemed, disturbingly, to know the hero intimately, to know his methods, his secrets, his very identity. And as the hero investigated this mysterious new figure, he came at last to a truth he could not believe, could not accept, that the ruthless new vigilante was his lost son, somehow returned from the dead. How the boy returned is a strange and tangled thing, involving forces beyond the ordinary, the reaches of the impossible, and the story never quite explains it cleanly. But return he did, alive again, though changed, hardened, embittered, no longer the boy the hero had lost, but an angry and ruthless man, consumed by a terrible grievance. For the returned son had come back with a single burning question, a single unbearable grief, and it was this, that the hero had not avenged him, had not killed the Laughing Man who had murdered him, had let his murderer live, and this the returned son could not forgive. The heart of the story, then, is the confrontation between the hero and his returned son over this terrible question, the question of why the hero did not kill the Laughing Man to avenge his murdered son, why he let the murderer live, why he clung to his rule even against the man who had killed his own child. The returned son cannot understand it, cannot forgive it, sees in it a betrayal, a proof that the hero did not love him enough, that his rule mattered more to him than his son's murder, and he demands an answer, demands that the hero explain how he could let his son's killer live. It is a devastating confrontation, for both of them are right in their way, and both are grieving, and there is no answer that can satisfy. The returned son's rage is understandable, the rage of a murdered child at the father who did not avenge him, and yet the hero's restraint is also understandable, the refusal of a good man to become a killer even in his grief, the holding to a rule that is the only thing keeping him from the abyss. They are both broken by the same loss, and they cannot reconcile, and the story becomes a terrible meditation on grief and vengeance, and the limits of the hero's rule. The returned son forces the hero to a terrible choice, a choice between his son and his rule, presenting him with the laughing man and demanding that the hero kill the clown at last, or let the son do it, or stop the son by killing him instead, forcing the hero into an impossible corner where he must either break his rule or lose his son again. And the hero, in the end, will not break his rule, will not kill, not even the laughing man, not even to save his son, and the returned son, unable to forgive this, unable to accept it, turns away, is lost to the hero once more, not to death this time, but to estrangement, to a grievance that cannot be healed. There is no clean resolution to this story, no comfortable ending, for it is about a wound too deep to heal, a grief too great to resolve, a question too terrible to answer. The hero keeps his rule and loses his son a second time, this time to bitterness and estrangement, and the story leaves them broken, the father and the returned son unable to reconcile, divided forever by the terrible question of grief and vengeance. It is one of the darkest and most emotionally complex stories in all the mythology, a tale with no villains exactly, only two grieving people who cannot forgive each other, and it stays with you, this story, long after it is over. And yet, in the long run of the tales, there is a distant hope even here, for across the years that follow, the hero and his returned son slowly, painfully, begin to find their way back to each other, never fully reconciled, but no longer entirely estranged, two damaged people learning, over long years, to be a kind of family again, despite the terrible thing that stands between them. It is not a full healing, but it is something, a slow and partial mending of an unmendable wound. And there is a gentle hope in that, in the possibility that even the deepest grievances can, over time, be softened, that even the most broken bonds can, in some measure, be repaired. It is a dark story, the tale of the second son, and it carries, at its far edge, a distant and hard-won light. Let us turn now to the story of the one enemy who truly broke the hero, not merely defeated him, but shattered him, body and spirit, in one of the most famous and most methodical downfalls in all the mythology. It is the story of a villain who did not simply fight the hero, but studied him, understood him, and destroyed him with cold and patient intelligence. And it is a tale about the limits of even the greatest strength, about how even the hero can be broken when a clever enough enemy sets out, with patience and cunning, to break him. The villain who did it was a figure unlike the hero's usual foes, an enormous man of immense strength, his body pumped full of a powerful drug that gave him monstrous power, but more dangerous than his strength was his mind, for he was a genius, a strategist, a man of cold and patient intelligence who had spent his whole terrible life preparing himself, body and mind, to be the ultimate predator. He came to the city with a single goal: to defeat the hero, to prove himself the master, to break the legend. And unlike the hero's other enemies, he did not rush at this goal, but approached it with patience and cunning, studying his prey, learning his weaknesses, preparing his trap. The villain's plan was a masterpiece of cruelty and cunning, for rather than simply confront the hero, he set out first to exhaust him, to wear him down, to grind him to nothing, and to do this, he unleashed a catastrophe upon the city, breaking open the great asylum and freeing all of its inmates at once, releasing every madman and monster the hero had ever caught, all of them loose in the city at the same time. And the hero, seeing his city overwhelmed by all his enemies at once, threw himself into the desperate work of catching them all, running himself ragged night after night, hunting down villain after villain, wearing himself down to exhaustion in the enormous effort. For weeks the hero labored, sleepless, wounded, running on nothing but will, catching the escaped madmen one by one, refusing to rest, refusing to stop, driving himself past all endurance to save his city from the flood of villains the enemy had released. And all the while the enemy watched, patient, waiting, letting the hero exhaust himself, letting the effort grind him down, letting him wear himself to nothing, chasing the very trap the enemy had set. The catastrophe at the asylum was never really about the escaped inmates at all. It was about exhausting the hero, about wearing him down, about breaking him before the final confrontation even began. At last the hero, having caught nearly all the escaped villains, staggered home to his cave, wounded and exhausted, worn to the very edge of collapse, having pushed himself past all human endurance. And it was there, in the sanctuary of his own home, at the moment of his greatest weakness, that the enemy struck. For the villain had discovered the hero's secret, had followed him home, and he came to the cave to face the hero at last, when the hero was too exhausted to fight, too worn down to win. The trap had worked perfectly, and the hero, for all his skill, was too broken by the long ordeal to stand against the fresh and powerful enemy. The confrontation in the cave is one of the most famous scenes in all the mythology, for the exhausted hero, though he fought with all his remaining strength, could not stand against the fresh and mighty enemy, and the villain overpowered him, beat him down, and then, in a terrible moment of triumph, lifted the broken hero over his head and brought him down across his knee, shattering his spine, breaking his back, leaving him crippled and helpless on the floor of his own cave. The hero was broken, body and spirit, defeated as he had never been defeated, and the enemy stood triumphant over the shattered legend, having done what no one had ever done, having broken the bat. It is a devastating moment, the breaking of the hero, for it shows that even the greatest of them can be broken, that even the hero has his limits, that no strength is beyond breaking if a clever enough enemy sets out to break it. The hero lay crippled and helpless, his spine shattered, his war seemingly ended, his city left without its protector, and it seemed that the legend had been destroyed, that the bat was broken forever, that the enemy had won completely. But the story does not end with the breaking, for a legend is not so easily destroyed, and what follows is a long tale of recovery and reclamation. Unable to continue his war, the crippled hero passed his mantle to another, a troubled young man of great skill and fierce faith, hoping that this successor would carry on the work while the hero healed. But the successor was unstable, violent, prone to a dark and brutal rage, and under his hand, the mantle of the hero was twisted into something crueler and more frightening, a version of the hero who used fear and violence without restraint, who nearly crossed every line the true hero had always held. And so the crippled hero, healing slowly through great effort and the help of those who loved him, faced a second struggle, not against the enemy who had broken him, but against the successor who had twisted his mantle. For he had to reclaim the identity he had given away, had to take back the mantle from the unstable young man who had corrupted it, had to prove that the hero was not merely a costume and a set of skills, but a discipline, a restraint, a soul, that the true hero was not the brutal figure the successor had become. The hero recovered his strength, retrained his broken body, and returned at last to reclaim his mantle, defeating the successor not through greater violence, but through greater discipline, through the restraint and the control that were the true heart of the hero. The story of the breaking and the reclamation is, in the end, a story about what truly makes the hero, for it strips away his strength, breaks his body, gives his mantle to another, and asks what remains, what the hero truly is beneath the costume and the skills and the strength. And the answer it gives is that the hero is not his strength, which can be broken, nor his skills, which can be learned by another, but his discipline, his restraint, his refusal to become a monster, the soul beneath the mask. And it is this that the reclaimed hero proves when he takes back his mantle from the brutal successor, that the true hero is defined not by his power, but by his restraint. It is a long and epic story, the breaking of the bat and the reclamation of the mantle, and it is beloved for the way it tests the hero to his very limits and beyond, breaking him utterly and then showing his slow, hard-won return, proving that the legend cannot be destroyed, that the hero is more than his body and his strength, that the soul of the hero endures even when everything else is broken. And there is a deep hope in it, beneath all the darkness, the hope that even the most complete defeat can be recovered from, that even a broken body can heal, that even a shattered legend can rise again, and it is a stirring and thoughtful thing to carry towards sleep, the story of the hero broken and the hero returned. Let us turn now to one of the most epic and extraordinary stories in all the mythology, a tale not of a single villain but of a whole city brought to ruin, abandoned by the world, and slowly, painfully reclaimed. It is the story of the year the great dark city died and was reborn, the year it became a lawless no-man's land cut off from the rest of the world, and it is a sprawling and unforgettable tale of survival and loyalty, and the stubborn refusal to give up on a broken place. It began with catastrophe, with a tremendous earthquake that struck the city without warning and brought much of it crashing down, toppling the great towers, cracking open the streets, breaking the bridges, leaving the proud, dark city a smoking ruin of rubble and fire and the dead. The disaster was enormous, beyond anything the city had ever faced, and it left the survivors to crawl out of the wreckage into a city that had, in a single terrible convulsion of the earth, become a graveyard. Its infrastructure destroyed, its systems failed, its people desperate. What followed was even darker, for the government of the nation, judging the ruined city too broken and too dangerous to save, made the stunning decision to abandon it entirely, to evacuate everyone who would leave, and then to seal the city off from the rest of the country, blowing the bridges, closing the tunnels, declaring that the city was no longer part of the nation at all, cutting it loose and leaving it to rot. A whole great city was officially given up on, walled away from the world, left to survive however it could, its remaining people trapped inside with no government, no help, no order. And so the city became a no man's land, a lawless ruin cut off from all help, and it fragmented into territories carved up by the gangs and the villains, each claiming their own patch of the wreckage, marking their borders with painted symbols, ruling their little kingdoms of rubble. The ordinary survivors scraped by in the cracks between them, bartering for food and water and safety, living in a city that had fallen entirely out of the modern world, a city reverted to a kind of savagery, ruled by whoever was strongest, divided among the warlords of the ruins. In the early days of the no man's land, the hero was absent, gone from the city in its hour of greatest need, and his absence was deeply felt, for the people had come to rely on him, and his disappearance in the catastrophe demoralized them, made them feel truly abandoned, truly alone. Where was the hero, they wondered, when the city needed him most? And the question hung over the ruined city, a wound, a doubt, as the people struggled to survive without the protector they had come to depend on. But the hero returned, in time, and when he did, he threw himself into the enormous task of reclaiming the ruined city, not through some grand gesture, but through the slow, patient, block-by-block work of taking back territory from the gangs and the villains, of restoring order one street at a time, of rebuilding the city's hope through steady, unglamorous effort. He could not save the whole city at once, could not undo the catastrophe, could only work, patiently, tirelessly, reclaiming the ruins piece by piece, restoring order block by block, rebuilding hope one small victory at a time. The hero did not work alone, for the catastrophe had scattered his allies and his enemies alike across the ruined city, and the story is full of the ways they came together and came apart in the lawless months, the alliances and the betrayals, the small communities of survivors and the warlords who preyed on them. The hero worked alongside his old ally, the police commissioner, though their relationship was strained by the hero's earlier absence, the commissioner feeling abandoned, betrayed, unsure whether he could still trust the hero who had vanished when the city needed him most. The strain between the hero and the commissioner is one of the most affecting threads of the story, for it shows that even the deepest alliances can be wounded, that even the closest bonds can be strained by loss and abandonment, and their slow, difficult reconciliation across the long months of the no man's land is one of its emotional cores. The commissioner had felt abandoned, and the hero had to earn back his trust, had to prove himself again, had to rebuild not only the city but the bonds that had been broken by the catastrophe, and the slow mending of their friendship mirrors the slow mending of the city itself. The story introduced new figures too, new allies who rose in the crucible of the ruined city, and it tested old ones, revealing who would rise to the occasion and who would fall, who would help the survivors and who would prey on them. It was a time of revelation, the no man's land, stripping away the ordinary structures of the city and revealing the true character of everyone in it, the heroism of some and the villainy of others, the way catastrophe brings out both the best and the worst in people. And slowly, across the long months, the city was reclaimed, block by block, street by street, the gangs pushed back, the villains defeated, order restored, hope rebuilt, until at last the world could no longer ignore the city's stubborn refusal to die, and the nation was shamed into taking it back, into rebuilding it, into restoring it to the world it had been cast out of. The city that had been abandoned and left for dead dragged itself back to life through the stubborn effort of the hero and his allies and its own unbreakable people, and rose again, battered and scarred but unbroken, reclaimed from the ruin. What makes this story so powerful is exactly this: the refusal to give up on a broken place, the stubborn insistence on reclaiming what had been abandoned, the demonstration that even a city given up for dead can be brought back through patient, unglamorous, block-by-block effort. It is a story about resilience, about the refusal to surrender, about the way hope can be rebuilt even in the darkest ruin. And it celebrates not a grand heroic victory, but the slow, patient, stubborn work of reclamation, the unglamorous heroism of never giving up. And there is a deep and stirring hope in the image of the ruined city slowly reclaimed, the abandoned place slowly restored, the broken bonds slowly mended, the darkness slowly pushed back one block at a time. It is a story about endurance, about the stubborn refusal to give up, about the way even the greatest catastrophe can be recovered from through patience and loyalty and unbreakable will. And there are few more hopeful things to carry towards sleep than the story of the city that the world gave up on and that refused, all the same, to die. Let us turn now to a warmer story, the story of the first boy to fight at the hero's side, the first of his adopted sons, the one who brought light and youth and joy into the hero's dark and solitary war. It is the origin of the first young partner, and it is a story that begins, like the hero's own, in tragedy, in the murder of a child's parents, but that grows into something hopeful, into a tale of a broken man and a broken boy healing each other, of a lonely war becoming, at last, a shared one. The boy was a young acrobat, the youngest member of a family of circus performers, flying trapeze artists of great skill and grace, who travelled with a circus and thrilled the crowds with their daring flights through the air. The boy had grown up in this world of colour and spectacle and family warmth, performing alongside his mother and father, part of a loving family, a happy child of the circus, until the terrible night when it all came apart. For a cruel criminal, seeking to extort money from the circus, sabotaged the family's trapeze, and during their performance, before the horrified crowd, before the boy's own eyes, his parents fell to their deaths. In an instant, the boy's whole world was destroyed, his parents murdered before him, his happy life shattered, and he was left an orphan, alone, grieving, a child whose world had ended in a single terrible moment. And it happened that the hero was in the crowd that night, watching, and he saw the boy's parents fall, and he saw the boy left alone in his grief, and he recognized, with a terrible pang, the mirror of his own childhood, the same loss, the same shattering, the same orphaning of a child by a criminal's cruelty. He saw himself in the grieving boy, and he could not turn away. And so the hero took the boy in, made him his ward, gave him a home in the great dark house, and there began a healing that would change them both. For the hero understood the boy's grief as no one else could, having suffered the same loss, and he could offer the boy what he himself had never quite had, an understanding companion in grief, someone who knew exactly what the boy was feeling. And the boy in turn brought something into the hero's dark and solitary life that had been missing, a youth, a warmth, a light, the presence of a child who needed him, who looked up to him, who gave his lonely war a new meaning. The boy did not want to sit idle in his grief, wanted to act, wanted to fight the kind of cruelty that had taken his parents. And so the hero, seeing the boy's determination and his remarkable acrobatic skill, trained him, and in time made him his partner, the first to wear the bright colors and fight at his side. And here the story does something important, for the boy's costume and manner were not dark and frightening like the hero's, but bright and colorful and joyful, a deliberate contrast, a splash of light against the hero's darkness. And this was the boy's great gift, that he brought light into the hero's dark war, balanced the grimness with joy, reminded the hero that there was more to the fight than fear and vengeance. For the boy was everything the hero was not, warm where the hero was cold, joyful where the hero was grim, hopeful where the hero was haunted. And this contrast was the heart of their partnership, the dark hero and his bright young partner, the grim war lightened by the boy's youthful joy. The boy did not merely help the hero fight, he helped the hero heal, kept him human, reminded him of the warmth and the light that his solitary war had nearly extinguished. And in this, the boy gave the hero as much as the hero gave him, each healing the other's grief, each bringing the other back toward the light. There is a deep warmth in this story, in the way the two broken souls, the grieving man and the grieving boy, found in each other a healing, a family, a home. The hero had been alone in his war, solitary in his grief, and the boy gave him a companion, a son, a reason beyond vengeance. And the boy, orphaned and alone, found in the hero a father, a purpose, a new family, so that together they became something neither could have been alone, a partnership, a family, a shared war lit by a shared love. The boy grew across the years from a child into a young man, and in time he stepped out of the hero's shadow to become a hero in his own right, taking a new name and a new identity, becoming his own protector of the city, no longer the boy partner, but a grown hero, a leader, one of the finest and most beloved figures in all the mythology. And there is a beauty in that growth, in the way the grieving boy the hero took in, grew into a hero who surpassed, in some ways, even his mentor, more balanced, more warm, more whole, having learned from the hero's strength while avoiding the hero's darkness. The relationship between the hero and his first son remained, across all the years, one of the deepest and most important in all the mythology, sometimes strained, sometimes distant, but always, at bottom, a genuine love, the love of a father and a son who had healed each other's grief, who had found in each other a family, who had brought each other, each in his own way, back toward the light. It is one of the warmest bonds in the whole dark world, and it began in tragedy and grew into something hopeful and healing and true. It is a lovely story, the tale of the first son, warmer and more hopeful than many of the dark tales, a story about healing rather than breaking, about light coming into darkness, about two grieving souls finding in each other a family and a home. And there is a deep comfort in it, in the way it shows that even the darkest grief can heal, that even the most solitary soul can find companionship, that even a war of vengeance can be lightened by love, and it is a gentle and warming thing to carry towards sleep. The story of the boy who brought light into the dark. Let us turn now to a great sprawling mystery, a story in which a shadowy enemy, his face wrapped entirely in bandages, orchestrates an elaborate campaign against the hero, pulling the strings of villain after villain, always one step ahead, so that the hero finds himself attacked from every direction by enemies who seem to be working to some hidden plan. It is a tale of conspiracy and betrayal, of a mystery reaching back into the hero's own childhood, and it takes the hero on a journey through his entire world, bringing him face to face with nearly all his enemies and his allies in the course of a single investigation. The story begins when the hero, in the midst of an ordinary case, finds himself betrayed by circumstances that should not have gone wrong, as if someone were manipulating events against him, and as he investigates, he begins to sense a hidden hand behind a series of encounters, a pattern linking villains who should have no connection, a single mind orchestrating a campaign designed to destroy him. One after another his enemies come against him, and behind them all he glimpses a figure wrapped in bandages, watching, planning, always ahead of him, and the central mystery becomes the identity of this hidden enemy. Along the way, the story weaves in one of the hero's great and complicated romances, for in the midst of the danger he grows close to the woman in the cat's mask, the thief who has circled him for years, and their long, uncertain dance turns, for a time, into something like love, the hero allowing himself, rarely, to lower his walls, to trust, to open his heart to the one woman who has always understood him. This romance runs through the whole story, a thread of warmth and vulnerability amid the danger, the hero daring, for once, to let himself be close to someone. But the vulnerability is dangerous, for the whole campaign against the hero seems designed to exploit exactly this: his trust, his connections, his heart. And as the mystery deepens, the hero cannot be sure whom to trust, cannot be sure whether even the woman he is coming to love might be part of the conspiracy against him, might be controlled by the hidden enemy, might be a weapon aimed at his exposed heart. The bandaged enemy has struck at the hero not through strength, but through his relationships, his trust, his love, the most vulnerable parts of him. There is a shocking moment in the story when the hero seems to encounter a figure from his own painful past, a lost loved one, seemingly returned, a ghost from an old grief, and for a time it seems that the impossible has happened, that the dead have come back, and the hero is thrown into confusion and hope and grief. But this too is part of the enemy's cruel game, a manipulation aimed at the hero's oldest wounds, and its resolution is one of the story's many twists, a cruelty designed to torment the hero through his deepest griefs. At last the hero unravels the mystery, reasons his way through the tangled conspiracy to the truth of the bandaged enemy's identity, and the solution reaches back into his own childhood, into his earliest years. For the bandaged mastermind is revealed to be a figure from the hero's own boyhood, a childhood friend, a brilliant man who had nursed a secret hatred and a secret envy across all the years, who had watched the hero inherit everything while he, the friend, seethed with resentment, and who had planned this whole elaborate revenge with cold and patient care. The enemy is not a stranger, but an intimate, a friend turned foe, a betrayal from the hero's own past. The revelation is deeply personal, the enemy turning out to be someone the hero once trusted, once cared for, and it gives the story a real emotional weight, the betrayal of an old friendship, the discovery that someone from the hero's own childhood had become his most calculating foe, driven by an envy that had festered across a lifetime. And there is a further twist beneath even this, for behind the bandaged friend, there proves to be a second hidden hand, another of the hero's oldest enemies, a criminal genius obsessed with riddles, who had discovered the hero's deepest secret and helped to orchestrate the whole scheme, so that the conspiracy proves to be layered, one mastermind behind another. The story is beloved not only for its mystery, but for the way it takes the hero on a grand tour of his own world, bringing him face to face with nearly all his greatest enemies and his closest allies in the course of a single investigation, so that it serves as a kind of summation of his whole mythology, even as it tells its own tight tale. Villain after villain, ally after ally, appears across the story, each a piece of the puzzle, so that to follow the mystery is to wander through the entire world of the hero, meeting everyone who fills it. And beneath the mystery and the conspiracy, there is the emotional heart of the story, the hero's brief and doomed romance with the woman in the cat's mask, his rare attempt to open his heart, and the way the whole ordeal tests and threatens that fragile trust. In the end, the romance cannot quite survive the world they live in, the danger and the secrets and the walls the hero cannot fully lower, and there is a quiet sorrow in that, in the hero's rare attempt at love shadowed and strained by the conspiracy against him, a reminder of how hard it is for the hero to let anyone in. It is a rich and satisfying story, this tale of the bandaged enemy, full of mystery and betrayal, and a tour of the hero's whole world, and it is beloved for its scope and its emotion, for the way it reaches into the hero's own past and heart, for the grand mystery at its center, and the tender romance running through it. And there is a thoughtful melancholy in it, beneath the intrigue, about trust and betrayal and the difficulty of letting anyone close, and it is a fine and absorbing thing to drift through as sleep draws near, the story of the hidden enemy from the hero's own past. Let us turn now to a strange and dreamlike story, one of the most unusual and most haunting in all the mythology, a psychological journey into the great asylum where the city keeps its most dangerous madmen, and into the question of whether the hero himself belongs there among them. It is a surreal and unsettling tale, less a story of action than a descent into the mind, and it weaves together the hero's nightmarish night inside the asylum with the tragic history of the man who founded it, so that the two stories mirror and illuminate each other in strange and troubling ways. The story begins on a day of fools, when the inmates of the great asylum seize control of the institution, taking the staff hostage, and make a single strange demand, that the hero come inside, alone, into the madhouse, into their domain, to face them on their own ground. And the hero, though he dreads it, though something in him fears the asylum more than any ordinary danger, agrees, and enters the madhouse alone, walking into the nightmare, into the place where all his enemies wait, into the house of the mad. Inside, the asylum is a nightmare, a shadowy labyrinth of shadow and madness, and as the hero moves through it, facing his enemies one by one, the story becomes less a physical journey than a psychological one, a descent into the depths of the mind, a confrontation not merely with the madmen, but with madness itself, with the darkness in the hero's own soul. For the deepest question of the story is whether the hero is truly so different from the inmates, whether the man who dresses as a bat and wages a lifelong war is himself, in some way, as mad as the ones he has locked away, whether he belongs, in truth, inside the asylum with them. This question haunts the whole story, the terrible suggestion that the hero and the inmates are not so different, that the line between the sane protector and the mad prisoners is thinner than anyone would like to believe, that the hero's own obsession and darkness place him uncomfortably close to the madness he fights. The inmates taunt him with this, press him toward it, try to make him see that he belongs among them, and the hero, moving through the nightmare, must confront the darkness in himself, the fear that he is not the city's cure, but merely its most functional madman. Interwoven with the hero's night in the asylum is the tragic history of the man who founded it long ago, a doctor who built the institution hoping to heal the mad, and whose own story is a descent into the very madness he sought to cure. The story tells of this founder's life, of his mother's affliction of the mind, of the murder of his own family, of his slow descent into madness and violence, until the healer who built the asylum to cure the mad became, himself, a patient in his own institution, swallowed by the darkness he had hoped to fight. The two stories mirror each other, the hero's night in the asylum and the founder's tragic descent, both of them journeys into madness, both of them blurring the line between the sane and the mad, both of them suggesting that the darkness we fight may live also within us, that the healer may become the patient, that the hero may be closer to the madman than he knows. The founder's fall foreshadows the hero's danger, the risk that he too might be swallowed by the darkness, might cross the line into the madness he fights, might belong, in the end, inside the asylum. But the hero does not fall, does not succumb, makes his way through the nightmare and out the other side, having faced the darkness in himself and survived it, having confronted the question of his own madness and emerged, if not with a clear answer, then at least with his sanity intact, his self held together, his soul not lost to the madhouse. He passes through the nightmare and comes out the other side, changed by it, shaken by it, but not consumed, and there is a hard-won triumph in that, in the hero's survival of the descent into madness. It is a strange and dreamlike story, unlike almost any other in the mythology, more concerned with the mind than with action, more interested in the darkness within than the darkness without, and it is beloved for its haunting atmosphere, its psychological depth, its unsettling questions about the thin line between the hero and the madmen he fights. It is not a comfortable story, and it offers no easy answers, but it is a profound and thoughtful one, a meditation on madness and sanity and the darkness in every soul. And beneath its unsettling surface there is, perhaps, a strange comfort, the comfort of the hero's survival, of his passage through the nightmare and out the other side, of his holding on to his sanity and his soul even in the heart of the madhouse. He faced the darkness in himself and did not fall, walked through the nightmare and came out whole, and there is a hope in that, the hope that we too might face the darkness in ourselves and survive it, might walk through our own nightmares and come out the other side, still ourselves, still whole. It is a strange and thoughtful thing to carry towards sleep, the story of the night in the madhouse and the hero who did not fall. Let us turn now to a story from a different world entirely, for the hero has been imagined not only in his own time but in strange alternate versions, in other ages and other worlds, and one of the most beloved of these is a tale that sets the hero not in the modern city but in the gaslit past, in a Gotham of the 19th century, of horse-drawn carriages and gas lamps and fog-drowned cobblestone streets. It is a story of the hero in the age of gaslight, and it pits him against one of the most infamous killers of that real historical era, brought into the world of the mythology. In this gaslit Gotham, the hero is much as we know him, a wealthy man haunted by the murder of his parents, who has taken up the guise of a bat to wage war on the criminals of his city, but everything is dressed in the trappings of the old century, the fog and the gas lamps and the horse-drawn cabs, so that the familiar figure moves through a strange and beautiful antique world, a Victorian Gotham of shadow and gaslight. And into this world comes a terror, a killer who has crossed the sea, a murderer who had stalked the fog-bound streets of the old world and now brings his horror to the hero's city. The killer is a figure of real historical infamy, a shadowy murderer who preyed upon the women of a great foggy capital and was never caught, whose identity remains, to this day, one of history's great unsolved mysteries. And the story imagines that this killer, having eluded justice in his own land, has come across the sea to the hero's city to continue his horrors. And so the hero must hunt him, must match his own detective skill against the cunning of one of history's most elusive killers, must catch the murderer who was never caught, must solve the mystery that history left unsolved. The story becomes a dark and atmospheric hunt through the gaslit streets, the hero pursuing the shadowy killer through the fog, matching wits with a murderer of terrible cunning, trying to unmask the man behind the horrors before he can kill again. And there is a genuine mystery at its heart, for the killer's identity is hidden, and the hero and the reader must work to unmask him, following the clues through the fog-bound city toward a solution that history itself never reached. There is a further cruelty in the story, for the killer, cunning as he is, seeks not only to murder, but to frame, to cast suspicion on the hero himself, so that the hunter becomes the hunted, the detective becomes the suspect, and the hero must not only catch the killer, but clear his own name, must prove his innocence even as he pursues the guilty. The gaslit city turns against him, suspects him, hunts him, and the hero must fight both the killer and the suspicion that the killer has cast upon him, a double burden that deepens the danger and the drama. At last, the hero unmasks the killer, solves the mystery that history left unsolved, and the solution, when it comes, is a dark and troubling one, for the killer proves to be someone close, someone unexpected, a figure whose respectability had shielded him from suspicion. The unmasking is the story's climax, the revelation of the killer history never caught, and there is a satisfaction in it, the satisfaction of the mystery solved, the horror ended, the elusive killer brought at last to justice in this imagined world, even though in the real world he never was. What makes this story so beloved is the beauty and the atmosphere of its imagined world, the gaslit Gotham of fog and shadow, the antique trappings that make the familiar hero strange and new, the meeting of the mythology with real historical infamy. It is a story that shows how flexible the hero is, how he can be imagined in any age, any world, and remain unmistakably himself, the haunted man in the bat's guise hunting the darkness of his city, whatever the century, whatever the setting. And there is a particular pleasure in these alternate tales, these imaginings of the hero in other worlds and other ages, for they let us see him fresh, let us appreciate anew the essential things about him that remain constant across every version, the grief and the guise and the war on darkness, the same soul in 1,000 different worlds. The gaslit hero is the same hero we know, dressed in the trappings of another age, and there is a comfort in that constancy, in the way the essential hero endures across every world imagined for him. It is a beautiful and atmospheric story, this tale of the bat in the age of gaslight, and it is a lovely thing to drift through as sleep draws near, the fog-bound Victorian city, the gas lamps glowing in the mist, the horse-drawn carriages, the hero in his antique guise hunting the shadowy killer through the beautiful old streets. There is a dreamlike quality to it, the familiar made strange and antique, and it is a fine and gentle thing to carry towards sleep, the hero in the gaslit past, hunting the darkness through the beautiful old fog. Let us turn now to another tale from an imagined world, one of the most famous and influential of all the hero's stories, a vision of the hero grown old, come out of retirement in a dark future to fight one last war. It is a story about aging and legacy, and the eternal necessity of the hero, and it imagines a future in which the hero, now an old man, has hung up his cape for years, only to be drawn back into the fight by a city sinking into chaos, a story of the old knight returning for one last stand. In this future, the hero is a man in his later years, long retired, having given up his war a decade before after a terrible loss, and he lives now as a haunted old man, tormented by the absence of the thing he was, drinking away his days, dreaming of the war he gave up, the bat inside him clawing to get out. For the hero cannot truly retire, cannot truly stop being what he is, and the years of retirement have been years of torment, the caged beast within him straining against the bars, the old warrior aching for the fight he has denied himself. The city, meanwhile, has sunk into chaos, overrun by a savage gang of violent youths who terrorize the streets, the law helpless against them, the ordinary people living in fear, and the old hero, watching his city fall to this new darkness, cannot bear it, cannot stay retired, cannot let his city die. And so, at last, the old man takes up his cape once more, returns to the fight after all the long years, an aging warrior riding out one last time into a city that has forgotten him, to wage one final war against the darkness. There is something magnificent and something poignant in the image of the old hero returning, the aging body no longer what it was, the years weighing on him, and yet the will as fierce as ever, the old warrior refusing to surrender to age or despair, riding out one last time. He is slower now, more easily hurt, his body failing where once it was invincible, and yet he fights on, drawing on experience and will where he can no longer draw on youth and strength, an old man refusing to go quietly, refusing to let his city fall. The returning hero gains, in this dark future, a new young partner, a brave young girl who takes up the bright colors and fights at his side, bringing once more that spark of youth and hope into his dark war. A reminder that the fight goes on, that the young will carry it forward, that the hero's war is larger than any one warrior. And there is a warmth in this, in the old man and the young girl, the aging hero and his youthful partner, the passing of the torch, even as the old warrior makes his last stand. The story builds toward a series of great confrontations, the old hero facing the savage gang and its brutal leader, facing old enemies returned, facing at last the laughing man himself in a final and terrible reckoning. And there is a darkness in this final confrontation with the clown, for the old hero, worn down by years and grief, is pushed nearly to the breaking of his one great rule, nearly to the killing of his oldest enemy, and though he holds back, the laughing man, in a final cruel act, ensures that the hero will be blamed for his death, a last terrible joke. The story reaches its climax in a confrontation that has become legendary, for the government of this dark future, threatened by the old hero's return, by his refusal to submit to their authority, sends against him the one being who might stop him, a mighty figure of great power who has become the government's servant, and the two of them, the old hero and the mighty servant of the state, face each other in a final battle. The aging hero, with all his cunning and all his preparation and all his will, stands against a foe far more powerful than himself, and it is a battle not of strength but of will, of the old warrior's refusal to submit. The story ends ambiguously, with the old hero seeming to fall, to die at last, his long war finally over, and yet with a final suggestion that it is not truly the end, that the old warrior has one more trick, one more plan, that he will carry on his war in a new way, underground, out of sight, gathering the young to him, training a new generation, ensuring that the fight goes on beyond him. The old hero does not truly end but transforms, passes into legend and into a new kind of war, ensuring that the darkness will always be met, that there will always be someone to fight it. What makes this story so powerful and so influential is its meditation on aging and legacy, on the refusal to surrender, on the eternal necessity of the hero, for it imagines the hero grown old and yet unbroken, refusing to go quietly, fighting on past all reason, ensuring that his war continues beyond his own strength and his own years. It is a story about the indomitable will, about the refusal to surrender to age or despair or death, about the way the hero endures beyond any single warrior, and it is stirring and magnificent even in its darkness. And there is a strange hope in it, beneath the grimness, the hope of the indomitable spirit that will not surrender, that fights on past all reason, that ensures the darkness will always be met. The old hero refuses to go quietly, refuses to let his city fall, refuses to let his war end, and there is something magnificent and something deeply hopeful in that refusal, in the image of the old warrior, riding out one last time, unbroken, indomitable, ensuring that the fight goes on. It is a stirring and thoughtful thing to carry towards sleep, the story of the old hero and his last great war. Let us turn now to a story of the hero's early days, a grand and colourful tale of a whole city held hostage by a genius of riddles, a story in which the puzzle-loving villain seizes control of the entire city and plunges it into a strange and beautiful catastrophe. It is a tale from the hero's first years, when he was still new to his war, still learning what he could do, and it pits him against one of his greatest enemies in a struggle for the very soul of the city. The villain of this story is a criminal genius obsessed with puzzles and riddles, a man of towering intellect and towering ego, who believes himself the smartest person in the city and means to prove it by taking the whole city hostage, by defeating everyone, by making the entire population bow to his intellect. And his scheme is enormous, audacious, almost unimaginable in its scale, for he does not merely rob or kill, but seizes control of the city's systems, cuts off its power, and plunges it into darkness and chaos, declaring himself its master. Worse still, the villain floods the city, letting the waters rise through the streets, and then lets nature reclaim it, so that the great dark city becomes, under his reign, a strange overgrown ruin, its towers wrapped in creeping green, its streets become rivers and swamps, a drowned and jungle-choked city ruled by a genius of riddles. It is one of the most striking images in all the mythology, the great city drowned and overgrown, reclaimed by water and jungle, the proud towers wrapped in vines, all under the mad reign of the puzzle-loving villain. And the villain rules this drowned city through riddles, issuing his puzzles to the trapped population, daring anyone to outsmart him, promising to restore the city to anyone who can answer his riddles, but ensuring that no one can, that his intellect is supreme, that the whole city is his to command. He has made the city into a great puzzle with himself as the master, and the trapped people, without power, without help, live at the mercy of his riddles, ruled by a genius who has turned their city into his plaything. Into this catastrophe steps the young hero, still new to his war, and he becomes the city's only hope, the one figure who might match the villain's intellect, who might solve his riddles, who might reclaim the drowned city from its mad master. And the story becomes a great struggle of wits between the young hero and the genius of riddles, the hero working to outsmart the villain, to solve his puzzles, to reclaim the city, to prove that even the smartest villain can be defeated. There is a grand and colourful energy to this story, a sense of scale and spectacle, the whole city transformed into a drowned jungle ruled by a supervillain, the young hero fighting to reclaim it, and it is beloved for its vibrancy, its imagination, its bold reimagining of the hero's early days. It shows the hero at his most heroic, standing alone against an enemy who has conquered the whole city, refusing to bow, refusing to surrender, fighting to save a city that everyone else has given up on. The hero does, in the end, defeat the villain, outsmart the genius of riddles, reclaim the drowned city, restore its power and its order, prove that even the smartest villain can be beaten. But the victory is hard won, earned through great struggle and great sacrifice, and it establishes the young hero as the city's true protector, the one who saved it when all seemed lost. It is a triumphant story, in the end, a tale of the hero rising to meet an impossible challenge and prevailing, saving his city from a catastrophe that had seemed unstoppable. And there is a stirring hope in it, in the image of the young hero standing alone against an enemy who had conquered everything, refusing to surrender, fighting to reclaim his drowned and ruined city. It is a story about hope in the face of catastrophe, about the refusal to give up even when all seems lost, about the way a single determined hero can turn back even the greatest darkness. And it is a stirring and vibrant thing to carry towards sleep, the story of the young hero and the year the city fell to riddles and was reclaimed. Let us turn now to the story of the third boy to fight at the hero's side, a gentler and cleverer tale, for this boy was not found by the hero as the others were, but chose himself, worked his own way into the hero's life, and did so out of a deep concern for the hero himself. It is a story about a boy who saw that the hero needed help, and who set out, through his own cleverness and his own courage, to give it, and it is one of the warmer and more hopeful tales in all the mythology. The boy was a quiet, watchful, brilliant child, not an orphan like the others, but an ordinary boy from an ordinary family, who had, however, a remarkable gift for observation and deduction, and who had worked out, on his own, entirely through watching and thinking, the hero's greatest secret, his true identity. As a small child, he had chanced to witness the hero's first young partner perform a distinctive acrobatic move, and from that single clue, his clever mind had reasoned its way to the whole truth, connecting the acrobat and the bat and the wealthy man, uncovering the secret that the hero's greatest enemies had never managed to find. But the boy did not use this knowledge for any wicked purpose, sought no advantage from it, for his concern was entirely for the hero himself, for he had noticed something troubling, that the hero, after a recent terrible loss, had grown darker, harder, more reckless, more consumed by his grief, sliding toward an abyss of rage and despair. The boy understood, with his clever and compassionate mind, that the hero needed something, needed help, needed, above all, a partner, a young companion, to bring light back into his darkening war, and the boy resolved to provide it. For the boy had observed a deep truth about the hero, that he was better, safer, more himself when he had a young partner at his side, that the bright presence of a youthful companion balanced his darkness, kept him human, held him back from the abyss, and that without such a partner, the hero was sliding toward destruction. And so the boy set out to convince the hero to take on a new partner, to fill the empty place, to bring light back into the darkening war, and he did so not for his own glory, but out of genuine concern for the hero's soul. There is something deeply touching in this, in a boy who worked out the hero's secret and used it not for gain, but out of love, out of concern, out of a wish to help the hero heal, to bring him back from the darkness, to save him from himself. The boy's whole motivation was the hero's well-being, his fear that the hero was destroying himself, his conviction that the hero needed help, and he approached the hero not as a fan or an enemy, but as a concerned friend, offering exactly what the hero most needed. The hero at first resisted, unwilling to take on another young partner after his recent terrible loss, afraid to risk another child in his dangerous war. But the boy persisted, proved his worth, demonstrated his cleverness and his courage and his genuine understanding of what the hero needed, until at last the hero relented and took him on, made him the new young partner, the third to wear the bright colors. And the boy proved himself a worthy successor, clever and brave and steady, and he did indeed bring light back into the hero's darkening war, balanced his grief, held him back from the abyss, healed something in him. The boy grew, across the years, into one of the finest of all the young heroes, a brilliant detective in his own right, perhaps the cleverest of all the hero's partners, and his story is one of the most hopeful in the mythology, the tale of a boy who chose to help, who worked his way into the hero's life out of love, who healed the hero's grief and became a worthy successor. It is a story about the power of a clever and compassionate mind, about the way a single caring person can save another from the abyss, about the healing that a young partner brings into the hero's dark war. And there is a deep warmth in it, in the boy who saw that the hero needed help and set out to give it, in the way his cleverness was matched by his compassion, in the healing he brought into the hero's life. It is one of the gentler and more hopeful tales, this story of the third boy, and it is a warming and thoughtful thing to carry towards sleep, the story of the clever boy who chose himself, who worked out the hero's secret out of love, and who brought light back into the darkening war. Let us turn now to a modern story that shook the hero to his core, a tale that revealed a terrible secret hidden in his own city, a secret so deep and so old that even the hero, who believed he knew every corner of his city, had never suspected it. It is the story of a hidden society that had ruled the city from the shadows for centuries, and of the hero's dawning, horrified discovery that a power he had dismissed as mere legend was, in fact, terribly real. The story begins with a murder, and as the hero investigates, he begins to find traces of something he had always dismissed as a children's tale, a spooky old rhyme about a secret society that watched the city from the shadows, a council of masked figures who had ruled the city in secret since its founding. The hero had always laughed off this legend. So certain was he that nothing in his city could hide from him, that he knew every secret it held. But as the evidence mounts, he is forced to confront the impossible, that the legend is true, that the secret society is real. This is a terrible blow to the hero, for he had believed that his city held no secrets from him, that he had mapped its every corner, that nothing could hide from his vigilance, and now he must accept that an entire secret order had operated beneath his notice for the whole of his life, ruling his city from the shadows while he watched over it, unaware. It is a humbling and frightening discovery, the revelation that the hero's knowledge, which he had thought complete, was full of holes, that his city held depths he had never plumbed. The hero's investigation leads him deeper and deeper into the secret of the society, into their hidden history, their silent killers, their long centuries of secret rule, and it becomes clear that they are far more powerful and far more dangerous than he had imagined, that they have woven themselves into the very fabric of the city, into its buildings, its institutions, its history, and they do not take kindly to the hero's investigation, for a society that has hidden for centuries does not wish to be found, and they turn their full power against him, determined to destroy the one man who has uncovered their secret. There is a harrowing sequence at the heart of the story, in which the society captures the hero and traps him in a labyrinth of their making, a maze designed to break him, to disorient and terrify and destroy him, and for a time the hero is pushed to the very edge of his endurance, lost and hunted in the dark, his certainty shattered, his strength failing, his mind reeling. It is one of the most intense and frightening sequences in all the mythology. The hero broken and lost in the enemy's maze, pushed past all endurance, near to breaking entirely. But the hero does not break, and even in the depths of the maze, even broken and desperate, his will holds, his mind keeps working, and he finds his way through the labyrinth and out the other side, having survived the trap designed to destroy him, having learned the full terrible truth of the society that had hidden from him for so long. He emerges from the maze changed, humbled, shaken, but not defeated, ready at last to face the secret society openly, to drag their ancient secret into the light. The story becomes a war between the hero and the hidden society, a struggle for the soul of the city, the hero fighting to expose and defeat a power that had ruled from the shadows for centuries, a power woven into the very fabric of his city, a power he had never suspected. And it is a hard war, for the society is ancient and powerful and deeply entrenched, and the hero must fight not only their killers, but the terrible knowledge that his city has been secretly ruled all his life, that his vigilance had failed, that the darkness ran deeper than he had ever imagined. What makes this story so powerful is exactly this humbling of the hero, this revelation of the limits of even his extraordinary knowledge, this discovery that his city held a secret so deep that even he had missed it. It is a story about the danger of certainty, about the way even the greatest vigilance can be blinded, about the depths that lie beneath even the most familiar places. And it changes the hero, makes him humbler, more aware that his city holds secrets even he has not uncovered, that there is always another shadow beneath the shadows. And yet it is also a triumph, for the hero does uncover the truth, does drag the ancient secret into the light, does fight the hidden society and break their power, despite his own initial blindness, despite the maze built to destroy him, despite everything arrayed against him. He is humbled but not defeated, and there is a hard-won strength in that, in the hero overcoming not only a hidden enemy, but his own certainty, learning and growing even as he fights, the mark of a hero who never stops questioning what he thinks he knows. It is a dark and thoughtful story, and a gripping one, and it is an absorbing thing to carry towards sleep, the tale of the secret that ruled the city and the hero who dragged it into the light. Let us turn now to one of the most beloved of all the hero's stories, a long and haunting murder mystery that unfolds across a single year in the early days of the hero's war, when the city was ruled not yet by costumed madmen, but by the old crime families. It is a story of a mysterious killer who strikes only on holidays, and of the terrible transformation of a good man into a monster. And it is a tale of such richness and such tragedy that it stands among the finest crime fiction ever told in the mythology. It is set early in the hero's career, when he has only just begun his war, and it begins when a mysterious killer starts murdering members of the most powerful crime family in the city, striking only on holidays, one killing on each, working through the calendar month by month, always using the same weapon, always leaving the same strange calling card. The killer becomes known by the holidays on which the murders fall, a phantom who appears on each in turn to strike down another figure of the underworld, and the whole city is gripped by the mystery of who this holiday killer might be. The hero takes up the case, joined by two allies, his old friend the honest police officer and a crusading young district attorney, and the three of them form a secret pact, agreeing to work together to bring down the crime family, even as they hunt the killer stalking it. Their alliance is the heart of the story, three good men working together against the darkness of their city, and the case becomes the central obsession of that whole long year, the mystery deepening with every holiday, every murder, every clue. What makes the story so brilliant as a mystery is the way it plants its clues and its suspects, offering a whole gallery of people who might be the killer, each with their own motive and their own opportunity, so that the mystery genuinely puzzles, genuinely keeps you guessing, the suspicion shifting from one figure to another as the year wears on. There is the resentful son of the crime lord, and the crusading district attorney whose zeal might have curdled into something darker, and the district attorney's quiet, watchful wife, and others besides, and the hero must sift the evidence and weigh the suspects and try to reason toward the truth. The case is deepened by a terrible transformation that befalls one of the hero's own allies during that long year. For the crusading district attorney, the very man helping to hunt the killer, is himself horribly disfigured in an attack, half his face burned away by acid flung across a courtroom, and his mind broken along with his face, so that he descends into madness and becomes one of the city's great villains. This transformation, unfolding in the middle of the mystery, is one of the great tragedies of the story, the fall of a good man, the making of a monster, the corruption of the city's white knight into a creature of chance and vengeance. When the solution finally comes, it is layered and haunting, and deliberately not quite simple, for one figure confesses to the killings, and yet the story suggests that the truth is more tangled than a single confession can capture, that the holiday killings may have been the work of more than one hand, that different murders across that long year may have been committed by different people. It is a solution that gives you an answer and leaves you turning it over, one of the most discussed endings in all the mythology, a mystery that the hero closes and that yet retains a shadow of ambiguity. This layered, haunting quality is exactly what makes the story so great, for it is not a simple puzzle with a simple answer, but a rich and tragic tale of crime and madness and family, a mystery embedded in a genuine tragedy, the fall of a good man woven into the hunt for a killer, and it captures a great turning point in the city's history, the moment when the old order of rational crime families gave way to the new age of theatrical madmen, the district attorney's transformation into a monster marking the dawn of the strange and terrible age to come. It is a beautiful and tragic story, this tale of the holiday killer and the fall of the White Knight, and it is beloved for its richness, its atmosphere, its genuine mystery, its deep tragedy. It shows the hero at his best, patient and brilliant, working a genuine mystery across a whole year, and it shows the deep sorrow that so often underlies his cases, the way the crimes he solves are so rarely simple, so often bound up with madness and the breaking of good people. It is a haunting and absorbing thing to carry towards sleep, the story of the killer of the holidays and the long, tragic year the hero hunted him. Let us turn now to a dark and modern tale of the Laughing Man's return, a story in which the clown, having vanished from the city for a long while, comes back with a terrible new obsession, a scheme aimed not at the hero alone, but at his whole family, at all the young heroes and allies who fight at his side. It is one of the most frightening of all the clown's stories, a psychological horror that strikes at the bonds of the hero's found family, and it turns on a chilling idea about the nature of the hero and the clown, and the strange love between them. The clown had been gone from the city for a long time, vanished, absent, and his absence had been almost more unsettling than his presence, for no one knew where he had gone or what he was planning, and the city had grown uneasy in the long silence, waiting for the inevitable return of its most terrible enemy. And when he returns at last, he returns changed, more frightening than ever, having undergone some terrible transformation in his absence, and he announces his return with a wave of horror that leaves no doubt that the clown is back and more dangerous than he has ever been. The clown's new obsession is with the hero's family, with all the young heroes and allies who have gathered around the hero over the years, and he has come to believe that these companions have made the hero weak, have softened him, have diminished the pure and terrible thing he once was, and so the clown sets out to strip them away, to break the family, to isolate the hero, believing that in doing so he will restore the hero to his true and purest self, will make him again the lone and terrible figure the clown fell in love with, in his twisted way, so long ago. For the story turns on the clown's strange and terrible love for the hero, his conviction that the two of them are meant to be together, alone, locked in their eternal dance, and his jealousy of the family that has come between them. He does not want to kill the hero, for the hero is the great love of his twisted life, the one who gives his existence meaning. He wants, rather, to have the hero to himself, to strip away everyone else, to return them both to the pure and lonely dance they once shared. And this jealous, possessive love is the horror at the heart of the story. The clown menaces the family one by one, playing on their fears, striking at their bonds, trying to turn them against one another and against the hero, and he claims, chillingly, to know all their secrets, to know who they are beneath their masks, though whether this is true or merely one of his cruel deceptions is left uncertain, a terror hanging over the whole family. The story becomes a psychological siege, the clown attacking not the family's bodies so much as their trust, their bonds, their love for one another, trying to break the family from within. There is a deep dread in this, in the way the clown attacks the very thing that makes the hero strong, the family, the bonds of love and loyalty that have sustained him, and in the way the family must fight not only the clown, but the doubt and the fear he sows among them. The hero must protect his family from an enemy who strikes at the heart of what they are, must hold the family together against a foe determined to tear it apart, and the strain of it, the fear and the doubt, tests the bonds of the family as they have never been tested. The story does not end in simple victory, for the clown's assault leaves wounds in the family that do not easily heal, doubts and fears and strains that linger long after the clown himself is defeated, so that even in stopping him, the hero and his family are marked, damaged, changed by the terror he brought among them. The clown is beaten, but not before he has struck deep at the bonds of the family, and the aftermath of his assault is a family shaken, its trust wounded, its unity strained, a reminder of how much damage the clown can do even in defeat. What makes this story so powerful is its focus on the family, on the bonds of love and loyalty that sustain the hero, and on the clown's terrible assault upon them, his jealous wish to strip them away and have the hero to himself. It is a story about the strength and the vulnerability of the found family, about the way our deepest bonds can be both our greatest strength and our greatest weakness, about the horror of an enemy who strikes not at our bodies but at our loves. It is a dark and frightening story, and a psychologically rich one, and it is a gripping thing to carry towards sleep, the tale of the clown's return and his terrible assault on the family. Let us turn now to a darker and stranger story, one in which the hero himself is broken and remade, captured and drugged and turned, for a time, against everything he believes, a tale about the fragility of even the strongest mind and the long road back from the abyss. It is one of the grimmest of all the hero's stories, and yet it is also, in the end, a story about recovery, about the reclaiming of the self, about the way even a mind that has been broken can be made whole again. The villain of this story is a false prophet, a charismatic and sinister preacher who has built a cult among the lost and the homeless of the city's underground, the forgotten people who live in the tunnels and the shadows beneath the streets. The false prophet preaches to these forgotten souls, gives them a purpose and a belonging, and slowly builds them into an army, a movement, a cult devoted to him, and he means to use them to seize control of the city, to overthrow its order, to make himself its master through the power of the forgotten multitude he commands. The hero, investigating this growing menace, is captured by the false prophet, taken down into the underground, and subjected to a terrible ordeal, drugged and starved and tormented, his mind assaulted, his will broken down, until, weakened and confused, he begins to fall under the false prophet's spell, begins to doubt himself, begins to break. It is a harrowing thing to watch, the breaking of the hero's mind, the assault on his very self, the slow crumbling of the will that had always seemed unbreakable. For a time the hero is lost, broken, turned, his confidence shattered, his mind clouded, his sense of himself dissolved, and he wanders the city a broken figure, unsure of who he is, his great will failing him, his identity crumbling. It is one of the lowest points in all the hero's stories, the great and unbreakable figure, broken at last, not by strength, but by the subtle poison of the false prophet's manipulation, reduced to a confused and broken shadow of himself. But the hero is not lost forever, for even in the depths of his breaking, some ember of his true self survives, and slowly, painfully, with the help of those who love him, he begins to fight his way back, to reclaim his mind, to rebuild his shattered will, to remember who he is. The long road back from the breaking is the heart of the story, the slow and painful reclaiming of the self, the rebuilding of the will, the return of the hero from the abyss into which the false prophet had cast him. And the hero does return, does reclaim himself, does rebuild his shattered mind and his broken will, and rises at last to face the false prophet and his cult, to free the forgotten people from the false prophet's spell, to reclaim the city from the underground menace. It is a hard-won victory, earned through the long ordeal of reclaiming his own mind, and it is all the more powerful for the depth of the breaking that preceded it, the return from the abyss, the rebuilding of the self. What makes this story so powerful is exactly this: the breaking and the reclaiming, the demonstration that even the strongest mind can be broken and yet can heal, can be reclaimed, can rise again. It is a dark story, one of the grimmest in the mythology, and yet it carries, beneath its darkness, a deep hope, the hope that even a broken mind can be made whole, that even a shattered will can be rebuilt, that even from the deepest abyss there is a road back. And there is a real comfort in that hope, in the image of the hero broken and yet returning, reclaiming his mind, rebuilding his will, rising again from the abyss. It speaks to something we all fear and all need to believe, that we can be broken and yet heal, that we can lose ourselves and yet find our way back, that even the darkest breaking is not the end. It is a dark but ultimately hopeful thing to carry towards sleep, the story of the hero broken and reclaimed, the long road back from the abyss. Let us turn now to a dark and chilling story, a tale carried not by the original hero, but by his first son, the one who had grown from the bright young partner into a hero in his own right. For there was a time when the original hero was believed lost, and his first son took up the cape and the cowl to carry on the work. It is a detective story of genuine horror, a slow descent into a truth almost too dark to face, and it proves that the first son had truly become a worthy heir, capable of the same patient, courageous detection as the hero who had raised him. The story weaves together several dark threads, and at its surface it concerns a shadowy figure who has begun trafficking in the gruesome memorabilia of the city's villains, running a secret black market in the relics of murder and madness, the weapons and the trophies of the city's most terrible crimes. The new hero investigates this dark trade, and his investigation draws him into a deeper and more personal horror, one that reaches into the family of the honest old police commissioner, the hero's oldest ally. For the deeper mystery of the story concerns the return to the city of a man with a brilliant and utterly cold mind, a man whose very ordinariness makes him all the more frightening, a psychopath returned after long years away, and the terrible question of whether this man is the monster that some fear him to be. The story becomes a slow and creeping horror, the gradual uncovering of a hidden evil, the mounting sense of wrongness, the accumulation of small, unsettling clues that gradually assemble into a picture of a monster wearing a familiar face. There is a particular dread in this story, the dread of evil hidden within an ordinary family, of a monster who looks like anyone, who wears the mask of normalcy, whose very ordinariness is his most frightening quality. The new hero must follow the trail of clues even as it leads toward a truth that will devastate people he loves, must uncover a horror hidden within the family of his closest ally, must face the terrible possibility that a monster has been living, unsuspected, among the good. The new hero proves himself a true detective in this story, patient and courageous, following the dark trail wherever it leads, refusing to look away from a terrible truth once the evidence begins to point toward it, showing that he has truly learned the art of the hero who raised him. And there is a beauty in that, in the way the bright young partner, grown into a hero, carries forward not only the cape but the method, the patient, unflinching pursuit of the truth, proving himself a worthy heir to the legend. The story is also a meditation on the city itself, on the darkness that seems to seep from its very stones, on the way it produces and harbors evil, and it uses its central mystery to explore the deep, almost supernatural malevolence that the stories often attribute to the city. The horror unfolds against a backdrop of a city that feels genuinely cursed, the crimes seeming to grow out of the dark soil of the place itself, so that the story becomes not only a mystery, but a portrait of the city's deep and terrible darkness. It is one of the great detective stories of the modern mythology, and it is all the more remarkable for being carried by the successor rather than the original, for it proves that the art of the hero can be passed on, learned, carried forward, that the mantle is not only a matter of the cape, but of the mind, the trained investigative intelligence that is the true heart of the hero. The new hero solves the case as the original would have, through patience and courage and relentless reasoning, and in doing so proves himself a worthy heir. And there is something moving in that, in the passing of the hero's art from one generation to the next, in the sight of the bright young partner grown into a hero, taking up not only the cape but the method, the patient, unflinching pursuit of the truth. It is a reminder that what makes the hero is not any single thing, but a discipline, a way of seeing and thinking that can be taught and learned and carried on, so that the hero endures beyond any single person. It is a dark and gripping story, and beneath its horror there is this hopeful truth, the endurance of the hero's art, and it is a chilling but thoughtful thing to carry towards sleep. Let us turn now to the story of a son the hero never knew he had, a child raised in secret and in darkness, brought at last to his father as a stranger, a deadly and arrogant boy who had been made into a weapon and who had to learn, slowly and painfully, to become something more. It is one of the most surprising and, in the long run, one of the most moving of all the hero's stories, the tale of a father and a son who were strangers, and of the difficult, tender bond that slowly grew between them. The boy was the hero's own child, born of a brief and complicated union with the daughter of one of his greatest enemies, an ancient and powerful figure who ruled a league of assassins. But the hero had never known the child existed, for the boy had been kept from him, raised in secret by his mother's people, the League of Assassins, trained from infancy to be a perfect weapon, a killer, an heir to the ancient empire of death into which he had been born. He grew up knowing nothing of his father, shaped entirely by the assassins who raised him, made hard and deadly and arrogant, a child soldier bred for murder. And then, one day, the boy was brought to the hero, delivered to his door as a stranger, a deadly and imperious child who announced that he was the hero's son and heir, and who expected to be treated as such. It was a shock to the hero, the sudden appearance of a son he had never known, a child already grown, already trained, already a killer, and the hero found himself suddenly a father to a boy he did not know, a boy who had been made into everything the hero opposed. The boy was, at first, almost impossible, arrogant and violent and contemptuous, trained to kill and seeing no wrong in it, dismissive of the hero's rules and restraints, a child who had been taught that killing was strength and mercy was weakness. He clashed with the hero and with everyone around him, this deadly and imperious boy, and it seemed at first that there could be no bond between the hero and the son who had been raised to be everything he was not, the child weapon and the man who would not kill. But slowly, across time, a bond began to grow, difficult and tender, for the hero saw in the boy not a monster but a child who had been failed and used and made into a weapon, a child who deserved a chance to be more than what he had been made, and the hero set out to give him that chance, to unmake the killer the boy had been raised to be, to teach him mercy and restraint, to help him become something more than a weapon, to be, at last, the father the boy had never had. It was hard work, the redeeming of the boy, for the killer had been trained into him from infancy, and the boy resisted, clung to his hardness, could not easily unlearn the things the assassins had taught him. But the hero was patient, and the boy, beneath his arrogance and his violence, longed, as all children do, for a father's love and guidance, and slowly, painfully, he began to change, to soften, to learn, to become something more than the weapon he had been made, to become, in time, a hero in his own right, the newest to wear the bright colors and fight at his father's side. The bond between the hero and his son became one of the most moving in all the mythology. The difficult, tender love of a father and a son who had been strangers, who had to learn each other, who had to overcome everything that stood between them, the son's terrible upbringing and the father's difficulty with tenderness. And there was a deep beauty in it, in the way the deadly boy was slowly redeemed by his father's love, in the way the father learned to be a father to the son he had never known, in the growing of a genuine bond between two people who had every reason to be strangers. There is a real tenderness in this story, beneath its strange and dark beginnings, the tenderness of a father redeeming his lost son, of a child learning to be more than the weapon he was made, of a difficult love slowly growing between two strangers who were father and son. It is a story about the possibility of change, about the way even a child raised to kill can be taught to be more, about the redeeming power of a father's patient love, and it is one of the more hopeful and moving tales in all the mythology. And there is a deep comfort in it, in the way it shows that no one is beyond redemption, that even a child made into a weapon can be unmade and remade, that even the most difficult bond can grow, in time, into a genuine love. It is a story about second chances, about the redeeming of the lost, about the tender bond that can grow even between strangers who are father and son. And it is a warming and hopeful thing to carry towards sleep, the story of the son the hero never knew and the love that slowly grew between them. Let us turn now to a quieter and more reflective story, the tale of the long years before the hero became the hero, the years of wandering and training and searching that made him what he is, the journey of a grieving boy into the man who would put on the cape. It is a story less of action than of formation, of the slow shaping of a soul, and it is one of the most thoughtful of all the hero's tales, a meditation on how a person becomes what they become. After the murder of his parents, the boy who would become the hero was left alone with his grief and his rage and his terrible vow to wage war on the evil that had taken his parents. But he was only a child, and he did not yet know how to fight that war, did not yet have the shape of the thing he would become. And so, when he was old enough, he left his city and set out into the wide world, to learn, to train, to prepare himself, to become the weapon his war would require. A long journey of formation that would take years and carry him across the whole world. He traveled from land to land, the young man, seeking out the finest teachers in every discipline that might serve his war, learning the fighting arts from masters, learning the sciences of detection from great detectives, learning the crafts of disguise and escape and endurance from those who knew them best. He drove himself relentlessly, pushing his body and his mind to their limits and beyond, refusing to stop, refusing to rest, honing himself year after year into the perfect instrument of his war, sacrificing his youth and his ease to the great purpose that consumed him. But the story is not only about the training of the body and the mind, it is also about the shaping of the soul, about the young man's search for the meaning and the shape of his war, about the questions he wrestled with across those long years. What kind of warrior would he be, and what lines would he not cross, and how would he fight the darkness without becoming it, and what would he become at the end of all his training? These were the questions he carried across the world, and the answers he found would shape the hero he would become. There is a particular importance to the young man's decision about the limits of his war, about the one rule he would never break, the vow that he would not kill, that he would fight the darkness without becoming a killer himself. This decision, made somewhere in the long years of his journey, is the moral heart of the hero, the line that separates him from the darkness he fights. And the story shows the young man wrestling toward it, choosing it, committing himself to a war fought without killing, a discipline of restraint that would define him forever. The long journey shaped the young man in body and mind and soul, forged him into the hero he would become, and at last, his training complete, his soul settled, his war given its shape, he returned to his city to begin the work he had prepared for all those years. He returned a different man from the grieving boy who had left, hardened and skilled and disciplined, ready at last to become the thing his war required, ready to put on the cape and begin his lifelong fight against the darkness of his city. What makes this story so thoughtful and so moving is its focus on formation, on the long, slow work of becoming, on the way a person is shaped by choice and discipline and searching into what they become. It reminds us that the hero was not born but made, forged through years of effort and sacrifice and searching, that the legend we know began as a grieving boy who chose, across long years, to become something more. And there is a deep meaning in that, in the reminder that we become what we become through the choices we make and the discipline we keep. And there is a quiet inspiration in it, in the story of the young man who took his grief and his rage, and rather than being destroyed by them, forged them across long years into a purpose, a discipline, a life of fighting for others. It is a story about the shaping of a soul, about the way suffering can be turned, through choice and discipline, toward good, about the long, slow work of becoming who we are meant to be. And it is a thoughtful and quietly inspiring thing to carry toward sleep, the story of the long road that made the man who would become the hero. Let us turn now to a gripping story in which the hero himself becomes the accused, framed for a murder he did not commit, forced to clear his own name even as the whole world turns against him. It is a tale that puts the great detective on the wrong side of the investigation. The hunter become the hunted, the solver of crimes become the suspect, and it tests him in a way few other stories do, forcing him to use his skills not to catch a criminal, but to prove his own innocence. The story begins with a terrible discovery. For a woman the hero had been close to in his public life, a woman he cared for, is found murdered in his own home, and all the evidence points at him, so that the authorities arrest the wealthy man behind the mask and charge him with the killing. The frame is expertly constructed, the evidence carefully arranged, and the hero finds himself suddenly the prime suspect in a murder, his public identity accused, his freedom threatened, his whole double life endangered by the trap that has closed around him. For a time the frame throws the hero into a dark and troubled place, for it is so complete, so damning, that he comes close to giving up his public identity altogether, to letting the man he pretended to be fall away and disappear into the mask entirely. So shaken is he by the trap. It is a low point for the hero, a moment of despair. The great detective accused and nearly broken by a frame he cannot immediately escape, tempted to abandon the ordinary self that has been so cruelly accused. But those who love the hero pull him back, remind him that the man behind the mask is worth saving, urge him to fight the frame rather than flee it. And so the hero sets his brilliant mind to the task of clearing his own name, of finding the real killer, of proving that he did not commit the crime. He turns his formidable investigative skills upon his own predicament, determined to out-detect whoever had built the trap, to see through the constructed appearance to the hidden truth beneath, to prove his innocence not by protesting it, but by finding the guilty. The investigation is a difficult one, for the frame was built by a master, the evidence carefully arranged to withstand scrutiny, and the hero must be cleverer than the one who trapped him, must find the flaw in the perfect frame, must trace the crime back to its true author, and slowly, through patient detection, he does, uncovering the truth, finding that the murder was committed by a professional killer hired to frame him, an assassin of extraordinary skill working at the behest of a powerful enemy who wished to destroy the man behind the mask. The hero unravels the frame, proves the assassin's hand in the killing, turns the very evidence that had condemned him into the means of his exoneration, out-detecting the very people who had tried to trap him. It is a triumph of pure detection under the most personal possible pressure. The great detective clearing his own name through the same skills he uses to catch others, proving his innocence through reasoning and investigation, escaping the perfect trap through the brilliance of his mind. What makes this story so compelling is exactly this reversal. The detective become the suspect, the hero forced to use his skills to save himself, and it reveals something about him under pressure, the way even accused, even trapped, even shaken to his core, he ultimately falls back on what he is, a detective, and reasons his way out of the trap. It is a story that tests him as few others do, that turns his own life into the mystery to be solved, and his triumph in it is a triumph of the mind under the most personal pressure. And it shows, too, how the hero's two lives are forever entangled, how a threat to one is a threat to the other, how the war he wages in the shadows can reach out and endanger the ordinary man he pretends to be. The frame was aimed at the man behind the mask, And yet it was the detective who had to solve it, the two selves working together to escape a trap laid for both. It is a gripping and satisfying story, the tale of the hero accused, and it is an absorbing thing to carry towards sleep. The great detective clearing his own name, out-detecting those who tried to trap him. Let us turn now to a gentler and more romantic thread, one that runs through many of the hero's stories rather than belonging to any single one, the long and complicated love between the hero and the woman in the cat's mask, the thief who has circled him for years. It is one of the most beloved relationships in all the mythology, a romance between two creatures of the night who can never quite be together and never quite stay apart, and it is a thread of warmth and longing running through the hero's dark and solitary life. She is a thief, this woman, a burglar of great skill and great daring who prowls the same rooftops the hero prowls, and by every rule of his life she should be simply another criminal to be caught. And yet across all the years he has never quite caught her, or never quite wanted to, and she has never quite let him, and the two of them circle each other endlessly, half in conflict and half in love, drawn together by something deeper than the line that should divide them, the hunter and the thief who cannot quite hunt each other. The first mystery of her is which side she is truly on, for she has been, at different times, a villain and a hero and something in between, a burglar who steals for herself and a protector who guards the weak of her own poor corner of the city, a woman whose morality genuinely cannot be pinned to either side of the line the hero has drawn through his world. This uncertainty is part of what draws the hero to her, the sense that she could go either way, that she is neither wholly good nor wholly bad, but something free and uncertain, unbound by the rigid lines that govern his own life. There is a deep understanding between them, for they are alike, the hero and the thief, both creatures of the night, both solitary souls, both hiding wounds beneath their masks, and each recognizes in the other a kindred spirit, someone who understands the loneliness of the double life, the burden of the mask, the ache of the guarded heart. She sees through his darkness to the man beneath, and he sees through her thievery to the good heart within. And there is a rare intimacy in that mutual recognition, two lonely creatures of the night who understand each other as no one else can. But their love is always shadowed by the impossibility of it, by the line between them, by the hero's inability to fully lower his walls, by the thief's inability to fully abandon her freedom, so that they are forever drawn together and forever driven apart, forever circling, never quite together, never quite free of each other. The hero cannot quite let himself love her fully, cannot quite let the walls down, cannot quite believe he deserves such happiness, and so the romance remains forever unresolved, a longing never quite fulfilled, a love never quite grasped. There have been times when they came so close, when it seemed they might finally be together, when the hero seemed ready to lower his walls, and the thief ready to abandon her freedom, when the possibility of a shared life flickered before them. But something always intervened. The danger of their world, the secrets they keep, the walls the hero cannot fully lower, and the moment passed, the love slipped away again, and the two of them returned to their endless circling, together and apart, drawn and divided, forever. There is a deep tenderness and a deep sorrow in this long romance, in the way the two lonely creatures of the night can never quite find their way to each other, in the way the hero's guarded heart cannot quite let the love in the way the thief's free spirit cannot quite settle. And yet there is a beauty in it too, in the enduring bond between them, in the way they keep returning to each other across all the years, in the love that persists even though it can never be fully grasped, a love that is real even in its impossibility. It is a bittersweet thread, this romance of the cat and the bat, and it is beloved for its longing, its tenderness, its enduring quality, the love between two lonely souls who can never quite be together and never quite stay apart. There is a gentle sorrow in it, and a gentle warmth, and it is one of the softer threads in the dark tapestry of the mythology, and it is a tender and melancholy thing to carry towards sleep, the long unfinished love between the hero and the woman in the cat's mask, circling each other forever across the moonlit rooftops of the great dark city. Let us turn now to a warmer story, or rather to a warm thread that runs through many stories, the friendship between the hero and the greatest of all his allies, a figure of light and hope as bright as the hero is dark, the two of them together forming one of the most famous and most beloved partnerships in all the mythology. It is a friendship between opposites, between the shadow and the sun, and it is one of the gentler and more hopeful threads in the dark tapestry of the hero's world. The hero's great friend is a being of almost limitless power and almost limitless goodness, a figure who fights his own war for justice in his own bright city, but where the hero fights from the shadows, using fear and darkness, his great friend fights in the light, using hope and inspiration, a beacon of goodness, as bright as the hero is grim. They are opposites in every way, the dark hero and the bright one, the man of fear and the man of hope, the shadow and the sun, and by all rights they should have little in common, should perhaps even be at odds. And yet they are the closest of friends, the two of them, bound by a deep mutual respect, each admiring in the other the very qualities he himself lacks. The bright hero admires the dark one's discipline, his cunning, his sheer determination, the way he accomplishes so much with no power but his own trained will. And the dark hero admires the bright one's goodness, his hope, his unshakable faith in people, the light he brings into the world. Each sees in the other something he needs, something he lacks, and their friendship is founded on that mutual admiration of opposites. There is a beautiful truth in their partnership, the truth that the world needs both of them, both the hope and the vigilance, both the light and the shadow, both the faith that reaches for the best in people and the watchfulness that guards against the worst. Alone, each would be incomplete. The bright hero's hope needs the dark one's caution, and the dark hero's grimness needs the bright one's light, and together they form a whole, a balance, the sun and the moon of their shared world, each completing the other. Their friendship is not without tension, for the dark hero, ever cautious, ever prepared, has secretly devised ways to defeat even his mighty friend, should that friend ever turn against the world. And this preparation, this planning against a friend, is a shadow over their bond, a coldness that troubles it. And yet, even this, the bright friend understands and, in a strange way, respects, for he knows that someone must be willing to guard against even the guardians, that the dark hero's terrible caution is a kind of gift, a promise that the world will never be left defenseless, even against its protectors. Beneath their friendship there lies a shared loneliness, for each of them is, in his own way, unique, singular, carrying a burden no one else can fully share, and in each other they find perhaps the one person who understands what it costs to be what they are. The bright hero is alone in his power, the dark hero alone in his darkness, and in their friendship each finds a companion who understands his particular loneliness, a fellow bearer of an impossible burden, and there is a deep comfort in that, in the friendship of two lonely giants who understand each other. When the two of them come together, it is always an event, the meeting of the shadow and the sun, and their partnership has produced some of the most beloved stories in all the mythology. The dark hero and the bright one working side by side, their opposite gifts combining, their different strengths complementing each other, and there is a joy in watching them together, the grim one and the hopeful one, the fear and the light, working as one, proving that even the greatest opposites can be the truest friends. There is a deep warmth in this friendship, and a deep wisdom, the wisdom that the world needs both light and shadow, both hope and vigilance, and that even the greatest opposites can complete each other, can be the truest of friends. It is one of the gentler and more hopeful threads in the dark world of the hero, and it is a warming thing to carry towards sleep, the friendship of the shadow and the sun, the dark hero and his bright friend, two lonely giants who found in each other, across all their differences, a true and enduring friendship. Let us turn now to a last story, a strange and beautiful and dreamlike tale that serves as a kind of eulogy for the hero, a meditation on how his story ends and why it never truly ends at all. It is unlike the other stories, less a tale of a single adventure than a dream, a reflection, a gathering of all the hero's many versions into a single contemplation of what he is and what he means, and it is a fitting story to end our long night upon. The story is framed as a funeral, the hero's own, gathered in a strange, dreamlike place, with all the figures of his long life, his friends and his enemies alike, come to mourn him and to remember him, and to tell the story of how he died. And one by one they rise to tell that story, the friends and the foes, each recounting how the hero met his end. And here the story does something strange and beautiful, for each of them tells a different story, a different death, contradicting all the others, so that the hero seems to die 100 different ways, and no single death is the true one. For that is the strange truth the story reveals, that the hero has died 1,000 deaths across his long history, in 1,000 different stories, and that no single one is the real one, that he is a figure who ends and ends and ends and yet never truly ends, who dies again and again and yet always returns. The contradictory eulogies capture this deep truth, that the hero is not a single character with a single story, but a legend told 1,000 ways, dying 1,000 deaths, and enduring beyond all of them. And the story asks, gently, what this means, what it means to be a figure who never truly ends, who dies and returns and dies and returns across all the long years, and it finds, in the end, a strange and beautiful answer. For the hero, it suggests, is a kind of eternal figure, a legend that cannot die, because it is not bound to any single telling, a story that outlives every ending, a spirit that returns in every new generation, forever renewed, forever beginning again even as it ends. The hero himself, in the dream of the story, comes at last to understand this, to accept that his story will never truly end, that he will die and return forever, that his war has no ending, that he is caught in an eternal recurrence of the same struggle, the same grief, the same fight against the darkness. And there is a question in this, of whether such an eternal recurrence is a blessing or a curse, whether it is a gift to be undying or a torment to be forever bound to the same struggle? And the answer the story gives is a gentle and hopeful one, for the hero comes to embrace his eternal recurrence, to accept that his story will always begin again, and to find in that not a torment but a kind of grace, the grace of a purpose that never ends, a fight that always continues, a light that is always renewed in the darkness. He accepts that he will always return, will always take up the fight again, will always be there when the darkness rises, and there is a deep peace in that acceptance, the peace of a soul that has made peace with its eternal purpose. There is something profound and beautiful in this meditation on the hero's endlessness, on the way his story never truly ends, on the eternal recurrence of the same struggle renewed in every generation. It captures a deep truth about the hero, that he is not a single character, but an enduring legend, a story that outlives every telling, a spirit that returns forever, and it finds in that endlessness not a sadness, but a grace, the grace of a purpose that never dies. And it is a fitting story to end our night upon, this dreamlike eulogy that is also a celebration, this meditation on the hero's endlessness that finds in his eternal recurrence a kind of peace and a kind of grace. For the hero's story does not end, will never end, will always begin again, and there is a deep comfort in that, in the knowledge that the light will always be renewed in the darkness, that the fight will always continue, that the hero will always return. It is a beautiful and gentle and hopeful thing to carry towards sleep, this last story of the hero who never truly ends, whose story is always, in the deepest sense, only just beginning again. Let us turn now to the story of the hero's most ancient enemy, a figure who has lived for centuries, a man of immense age and immense cunning, who regards the hero not as an enemy to be destroyed, but as a worthy heir to be won, and who addresses him always by a single respectful name, calling him simply the detective. It is the story of a rivalry unlike any other in the mythology, a contest between the hero and an immortal, a battle of minds spanning the whole world, shadowed by a strange and complicated respect. The ancient enemy is a man who claims to have lived for hundreds of years, kept alive by a strange and terrible secret, a bubbling pool with the power to restore the dying and even the dead, so that across the long centuries he has cheated death again and again, has watched empires rise and fall, has accumulated a cunning and a knowledge beyond any ordinary person. He leads a secret society of assassins, commands vast resources, and pursues a single terrible goal, the cleansing of the earth, the destruction of most of humanity, which he sees as a plague upon the world he wishes to save. He is one of the very few who ever deduced the hero's true identity, working it out through sheer brilliance where thousands of others failed, and their first meeting was a masterful mystery, the Ancient One appearing out of nowhere, revealing that he knew the hero's deepest secret, presenting him with a puzzle that drew the hero across the whole world. And from that first meeting there grew a strange and complicated relationship, for the ancient enemy admired the hero, saw in him a mind and a will to match his own, and wished, in his strange way, to make the hero his heir. For the ancient enemy has a daughter, and the daughter loves the hero, and the Ancient One would see them wed, would make the hero his son and his successor, would pass to him the empire he has built across the centuries. So certain is he that the hero is the only worthy inheritor in all the world. and this wish complicates their enmity enormously. For the Ancient One does not merely wish to defeat the hero, but to win him, to claim him, to make him family, and the hero must resist not only the enemy's schemes, but his seductive offer of power and love and inheritance. Their conflicts are grand and global affairs, sprawling adventures that carry the hero far from his city, across deserts and mountains and hidden strongholds. For the ancient enemy is a figure of vast reach, and to oppose him the hero must match his cunning on the scale of the whole world. These stories stretch the hero to his limits, pitting him against a mind as old and as clever as any he has faced, a foe who respects him, who tests him, who challenges him with schemes worthy of his genius, and who offers him, always, the terrible temptation of joining him. The respect the ancient enemy holds for the hero is genuine and deep, and it flows precisely from the hero's brilliance, his mind, his will, so that even this ancient and cunning foe acknowledges the hero first and foremost as a great mind, the greatest of detectives, the only worthy heir. To be called the detective by such a foe is the highest tribute to the quality that defines the hero, the recognition that whatever else he is first and above all a mind, a reasoner, the greatest detective in all the world. Their long rivalry is one of the great intellectual contests of the mythology, a battle not of strength but of minds, of the ancient enemy's vast plots against the hero's brilliant reasoning, unfolding across the whole world and across many years, shadowed always by the strange respect between them and the terrible temptation the Ancient One offers. And through it all, the hero refuses the temptation, refuses the offer of power and inheritance, remains true to his own difficult path, proving himself worthy of the respect his enemy holds for him, even as he denies him what he most wants. It is a grand and fascinating story, this rivalry between the hero and the immortal, a contest of minds spanning the whole world, shadowed by respect and temptation, and it shows the hero at his most cerebral, matching wits with an ancient and cunning foe, resisting the seductive offer of power, remaining true to his path. It is a story about the temptation of power and the strength to resist it, about the respect even enemies can hold for a worthy foe, and it is an absorbing and thoughtful thing to carry towards sleep, the tale of the detective and the demon's head, locked in their long and respectful war across the whole wide world. Let us turn now, as our night of stories draws toward its close, to a gentler theme, not a single story, but a truth that runs through all of them, the truth that the hero, who began his war in utter solitude, gathered around him across the years a whole family, so that the lonely crusade became, in the end, a shared one. It is the warmest thread in all the mythology, this slow gathering of a family, and it is a fitting note on which to near the end of our long night. The hero began alone, a solitary figure in the dark, a grieving man waging a private war, with no companion but his loyal old butler, no family but the memory of the parents he had lost. He was the loneliest of heroes, isolated by his grief and his mission and his secret, a single dark figure keeping his solitary watch over his city, and it seemed, in those early days, that he would always be alone, that his war would always be a solitary one, that no one could share the darkness he carried. But across the years, one by one, others came into his life, and the solitary war slowly became a shared one. First came the bright young partner, the orphaned boy who brought light into the darkness. And then another, and another, a whole succession of young heroes the hero took in and trained and loved. And there came allies too, the honest old police commissioner, the brilliant woman who watched over the city from her tower, the loyal friends who fought at his side, so that the lonely hero found himself, almost without noticing, at the center of a whole family. It is a strange and beautiful thing, this family the war built, gathered from the lost and the orphaned and the outcast, bound together not by blood, but by shared purpose and shared love, a found family forged in the crucible of the hero's war. Each of them had come to the hero alone, wounded, in need of a home, and each had found in him and in the family a belonging they had never known, so that the hero's war became a great gathering of the lost, a family of the wounded, held together by love and by the shared fight against the darkness. And the hero, at the center of it all, was changed by this family, softened, warmed, made more human, for the solitary crusader who had begun alone found in his gathered family a reason beyond vengeance, a warmth beyond his grief, a love he had thought forever lost. The family healed something in him, kept him human, held him back from the abyss of his own darkness, and gave his war a new meaning, so that he fought now not only against the darkness, but for the family he had gathered, for the love he had found. The family was not without its troubles, of course, for it was gathered from the wounded and the difficult, and there were conflicts and estrangements and losses across the years, sons who fell and sons who returned, allies who were lost and allies who came back, all the strains and sorrows of any real family, magnified by the danger of the life they shared. But through all of it, beneath all the conflicts and the losses, the family held, bound by a love that endured every strain, a loyalty that survived every betrayal, a bond that could not be broken. There is a deep warmth in this, in the way the loneliest of heroes gathered around him, across the years, a whole family, in the way his solitary war became a shared one, in the way the wounded and the lost found in one another a home. It is the warmest and most hopeful truth in all the dark mythology, that even the loneliest soul can gather a family, that even the most solitary war can become a shared one, that even the deepest darkness can be lightened by love. And it is a fitting truth to hold as our night of stories nears its end, this warmth at the heart of all the darkness, this family gathered from the lost, this love that endured through every trial. For beneath all the dark stories we have wandered through tonight, all the villains and the tragedies and the terrors, there is this gentle warmth, the warmth of a family, the love of the gathered lost, and it is a comforting and hopeful thing to carry towards sleep, the truth that even in the darkest world, even in the loneliest life, a family can be found, a love can be gathered, a warmth can be kindled against the dark. Let us turn now to a story about fear itself, about the one enemy whose whole power is the power of terror, and about the strange meeting of the hero, who wields fear as a weapon, with the villain who has made fear his entire art. It is a fascinating contest, for the hero is himself a master of fear, has built his whole legend on the terror he inspires, and here he must face a foe who has studied fear more deeply than anyone, who has distilled it into a weapon, who can conjure a person's deepest terrors and turn them loose upon their own mind. The villain of this story was once a scholar, a psychologist obsessed with the study of fear, fascinated by what frightens people and why, driven by his obsession to ever darker experiments until he crossed the line from studying fear to weaponizing it, from understanding terror to inflicting it. He developed a terrible chemical, a toxin that, breathed in, conjures a person's deepest fears, makes their nightmares seem real, floods their mind with pure terror, so that they see their worst horrors come to life and are helpless against them. And with this weapon he became a villain, a master of fear, spreading terror through the city for the dark joy of it. There is a deep irony in the meeting of the hero and the master of fear, for both of them wield the same weapon. Both understand the power of terror, both use fear to accomplish their ends. But where the hero uses fear in the service of protection, to frighten the guilty and guard the innocent, the master of fear uses it for its own sake, to spread terror for the joy of it, to make others suffer the horror he has studied so deeply. They are, in a sense, two masters of the same dark art, turned to opposite purposes, and their contest is a contest of fear against fear. When the master of fear turns his weapon against the hero, dosing him with the toxin that conjures the deepest terrors, the hero must face his own worst fears made real, must confront the horrors buried in his own mind, must fight not an outward enemy, but the terror within. And this is the heart of the story, the hero's confrontation with his own fears, the master of the dark art of terror, forced to face terror himself, to overcome the very weapon he has spent his life wielding against others. For the hero, of course, has deep fears buried beneath his hard exterior, the fear that lives in every heart, the horror of his parents' death, the dread of failure, the terror of the darkness he fights, and the master of fear's toxin brings all of it flooding to the surface, forces the hero to confront the horrors he has spent his life holding down. It is a harrowing thing, the hero drowning in his own terror, facing the fears he has always mastered, brought low by the very weapon he wields against others. But the hero overcomes it, masters his own terror as he has always mastered the terror of others, faces his deepest fears, and does not break, proving that his command of fear extends even to his own, that he can look upon his own worst horrors and not be destroyed. And there is a triumph in that, in the master of fear overcoming fear itself, in the hero facing his own terrors and emerging unbroken. And it reveals something deep about him, that his power over fear is not merely the power to inspire it, but the power to master it, even his own. There is a thoughtful irony at the heart of this story, this meeting of two masters of fear, this confrontation of the hero with his own terror, and it illuminates something about the hero's whole nature, his relationship with fear, the way he has made his own fears into a weapon, the way he masters terror rather than being mastered by it. It is a story about facing our fears, about the power to master terror rather than be ruled by it, about the strength to look upon our own worst horrors and not be broken. And there is, strangely, a comfort in it, in the hero's mastery of fear, in his ability to face even his own deepest terrors and emerge unbroken. For we all carry fears, all have horrors buried in our hearts, and there is a quiet inspiration in the hero who faces his own and masters them, who proves that fear can be faced, that terror can be overcome, that even our deepest horrors need not destroy us. It is a thoughtful and, in its strange way, a reassuring thing to carry towards sleep. The story of the master of fear and the hero who faced his own terror and did not break. Let us turn now to one last tragedy, the story of a good man broken in two, of the city's shining hero fallen into one of its darkest villains, a tale of a soul divided against itself and a friendship that could not save it. It is one of the saddest of all the villain origins, for it is the story of a genuinely good man, a friend of the hero, whose fall was not a matter of wickedness, but of tragedy, of a fine mind shattered by violence into a creature of chance and vengeance. The man was, before his fall, the city's crusading district attorney, a fearless prosecutor who waged war on the crime and corruption of the city through the law, a shining figure of hope, the city's white knight, and a true friend and ally of the hero. Together the three of them, the hero, the honest police officer, and the crusading district attorney, had formed an alliance against the darkness of the city, and the district attorney was the brightest of them, the public hero, the man who fought the darkness openly, in the light, through the law. But the district attorney had a flaw, a hidden fracture in his soul, a struggle with a darker self that he kept always in check, a temper, a rage, a shadow that he fought to control, and this hidden fracture would be his undoing. For in the course of his war on the crime families, he made himself a terrible enemy, and one day, in a courtroom, that enemy flung acid across his face, burning away half of it, scarring him horribly, and the shock and the trauma of it shattered the fragile control he had always kept over his darker self. The disfigurement of his face became the disfigurement of his soul, for the scarring of half his face seemed to release the darker half of his nature, the rage and the shadow he had always fought to control, so that the good man was split in two, half of him still the crusading hero, and half of him now a creature of darkness and vengeance. He became a man divided against himself, two natures warring in one body, the good and the evil, the hero and the villain, unable to reconcile, unable to choose, torn forever between his two halves. And so, unable to choose between his two warring natures, he surrendered his choices to chance, to the flip of a scarred coin, one side clean and one side scratched and ruined, letting the coin decide his every action, letting blind chance rule where his shattered will could no longer choose. It is a haunting image, the broken man consulting his coin before every act, surrendering his fractured soul to the fairness of chance, unable to trust his own divided will, ruled by the flip of a scarred silver dollar. There is a deep tragedy in this fall, for unlike so many of the hero's enemies, the two-faced man was not wicked but broken, not a villain by nature, but a good man shattered by violence into something he never chose to be, and the hero, who had been his friend, mourns his fall as the loss of a good man grieves the friend he could not save. And this is the heart of the story, the friendship that could not survive the fall, the hero's grief for the good man his friend had been, the sorrow of watching a shining hero become a broken villain. The hero never gives up on his fallen friend, always hopes to save him, to heal him, to reach the good man still trapped within the divided soul. And there is a poignancy in that, in the hero's refusal to abandon the friend he lost, in his enduring hope that the good man might yet be recovered, that the two halves might yet be reconciled, that the fall might yet be reversed. But the good man remains divided, remains ruled by chance, remains lost to the darkness that claimed him, and the hero's hope is forever disappointed, the friend forever unrecovered. It is one of the saddest stories in all the mythology, the tale of the good man broken in two, of the shining hero fallen into darkness, of the friendship that could not save him. It is a tragedy of a soul divided, of a fine mind shattered, of a good man lost not to wickedness but to violence and chance, and it carries a deep and sorrowful weight, the weight of a genuine tragedy, the fall of a good man, and there is a mournful beauty in the hero's enduring grief and enduring hope for his fallen friend, and it is a sorrowful and thoughtful thing to carry towards sleep, the story of the two-faced man and the friend who never gave up on him. Let us turn now, before the very end, to a gentler thing, not a tale of villains or tragedy, but the story of a light, a single beam thrown up against the clouds over the sleeping city, and of the quiet friendship it represents, one of the warmest and most enduring bonds in all the mythology. It is the story of the great signal, the light in the sky, and of the two tired men who share the vigil it announces. On the worst nights of the year, when the fog is thick and the crime is rising and the city's need is greatest, the police of the great dark city climb to their rooftop and shine a great searchlight up into the low clouds, a searchlight fitted with a dark emblem that throws the shape of a bat against the night sky. And that signal, glowing against the clouds over the sleeping city, is one of the most beloved images in all the mythology, a beam of light that is both a call for help and a warning to the wicked, a light in the darkness, a promise that someone is watching. There is a quiet and moving meaning in that signal, for it represents a strange and tender arrangement, an official police force openly signaling to an unofficial guardian, a city admitting that its own law is not enough, and reaching out, light against the dark, for something more. It is an acknowledgement of need, the signal, a confession that the city cannot save itself, a reaching out for help, and there is both hope and sorrow in that beam of light, the hope that help will come and the sorrow that help is needed at all. The signal represents, above all, the friendship between the hero and the honest old police commissioner, the two tired men who share the long vigil over the city. For it is the commissioner who lights the signal, who calls the hero, who has trusted him across all the long years, and the signal is the sign of that trust, that partnership, that friendship, the two of them working together against the darkness of their city, meeting on the rooftop in the small hours to share what they know. There is a beautiful and enduring friendship at the heart of it, between the masked hero and the honest cop, two tired good men who have given their lives to the same hopeless, necessary war, bound together by their shared devotion and their shared exhaustion and their shared refusal to give up. They meet on the rooftop, beneath the signal, in the dead of night, and they work their cases together, and they keep their long vigil together, and there is a deep warmth in that image, the two aging men keeping their lonely watch together against the dark. And there is a lovely, quiet trust between them, so deep that the commissioner has chosen, across all the years, never to learn the hero's true identity, declining to solve the one mystery he could most easily crack, because he understands that the secret is the price of the partnership, and that some things are better left unknown. It is a partnership founded on a shared devotion to justice, and a shared willingness to do the hard, thankless work of protecting a city that rarely thanks them. And the signal is its symbol, the light that calls the hero to the commissioner's side. There is a deep comfort in the image of the signal, the light in the sky, the promise that someone is watching, that help will come, that the darkness will be met. On the worst nights of the year, when the city is most afraid, the light goes up over the great dark city, and somewhere in the shadows a guardian answers, and there is a comfort in that, in the knowledge that someone is keeping watch, that the light will always call, and the guardian will always come, that the city is never truly alone in the dark. It is a warm and hopeful thing, the story of the signal and the friendship it represents, and it is a gentle note on which to near the very end of our night, the light in the sky, the two tired men keeping their vigil, the promise that someone is always watching over the sleeping city, and it is a comforting thing to carry towards sleep, the image of that light thrown up against the clouds, the promise it represents, the friendship it announces, the quiet assurance that on the darkest nights, over the sleeping city, a guardian is always keeping watch, so that the rest of us may sleep. And so we come, gently, to the end of our long night of stories, having wandered through so many tales, the beginning and the breaking and the reclaiming, the villains and the family, the tragedies and the terrors and the quiet warmths. And it is worth resting for a moment, as the night draws in, on why such dark stories should be so soothing a thing to drift towards sleep upon. Part of it, surely, is the simple comfort of stories themselves, the oldest comfort there is, the pleasure of being carried along by a quiet voice through tales half known already, asked to do nothing, to follow nothing, only to listen and to drift. And part of it is the way these dark stories, for all their darkness, are finally about the deepest and most human things, about grief and loss and love and loyalty, about the family we gather and the darkness we fight and the light we kindle against it. Beneath all the shadows and the villains, the stories of the hero are stories about being human, about carrying our grief and fighting our darkness and finding, despite everything, our family and our purpose. And there is a deep comfort in that, in the human heart at the center of all the darkness. We recognize ourselves in these stories, in the grief and the loss and the longing and the love, and in recognizing ourselves we feel less alone, comforted by the company of these familiar figures who carry, in their dark and dramatic way, the same burdens we all carry, and who find, in the end, the same things we all long for. And part of it is the hope that runs beneath even the darkest of the tales, the hope of the hero who will not surrender, of the light that is always renewed in the darkness, of the family gathered from the lost, of the soul that endures every breaking and rises again. For the stories of the hero, dark as they are finally hopeful, finally about the refusal to give up, the endurance of the good, the light that always returns, and there are few more comforting things to carry towards sleep than that, the quiet hope at the heart of all the darkness. And part of it too is the sheer abundance of it, the way we have wandered tonight through story after story, a whole night full of tales, so many that they begin to blur together at the edges, the beginnings and the breakings, the villains and the families, the tragedies and the triumphs, all of them flowing one into another like a river of stories carrying us gently along. There is a deep comfort in that abundance, in the knowledge that the well of these stories is bottomless, that there are always more, that a night full of tales is only the smallest taste of a history 80 years deep, and that whenever you wish to return, there will always be another story waiting in the dark. It is a river without end, this history of stories, and there is a peace in floating gently upon it, carried along by tale after tale toward the quiet of sleep. However many of them we tell, there are always more waiting in the dark, and there is a deep and gentle comfort in that inexhaustible abundance, the sense that the well of stories will never run dry, that there will always be another tale to carry you off to sleep on some other quiet night like this one. So let all of it settle over you now, softly, the whole long night of stories, and let it grow quiet and begin to fade. Let it drift over you one last time, the rain on the dark streets, the bat crashing through the window, the campfire and the family, the man of ice and his frozen love, the boy who brought light into the darkness, the old hero riding out one last time, the fog-bound city in the age of gaslight, the light in the window of the great dark house, the signal thrown up against the clouds, the hero who never truly ends. Let all these images gather softly together now, all the heroes and the villains and the tragedies and the warmths, and let them blur and soften and merge into one another until they are no longer separate stories at all, but only a single gentle drift, a warm, dark river of story carrying you down towards sleep. Let the images grow dim and gentle and soft at their edges, no longer quite pictures now, but only a warm, kind, formless drift, slow and easy and safe, dissolving gently into the quiet, into the warmth, into the soft and steady rhythm of your own easy breathing. There are no more stories to tell tonight, no more pages to turn, and no more shadows to follow, no signal in the sky, and no one left awake in the great dark city. You have wandered a long way tonight through the long dark history of the hero, through his beginning and his breaking and his return, through his villains and his family and his endless recurring story. And there is nothing more you need to carry now, and nothing at all you must stay awake to hear. It is all told, and you may let it go. Let it all drift over you softly now, the rain on the dark streets, the fog rolling in off the harbour, the great towers rising into the mist, and the quiet story unfolding in the shadows below. Let the images grow dim and gentle and soft at their edges, the way the world does in the last moments before sleep, until they are no longer quite pictures at all, but only a warm grey drift, kind and formless and slow. There is no need to hold on to any of it, no need to remember a single tale, no need to follow a single thread, only to let it all wash over you and carry you gently toward the quiet, like a familiar story read softly by a lamp in a warm room as your eyes grow heavy and the words begin to blur. None of it is real, and none of it can touch you. The old stories can keep themselves in the dark without any help from you tonight, and all their shadows can rest quietly where they have rested so long already, and you may set the whole of it gently down and be at peace. There is nothing to follow here, and nothing to fear, and nothing to do but let your body grow heavy and your thoughts grow soft, and the last of the day drains slowly away. You do not have to follow any story tonight, and you do not have to remember a single tale, and you do not have to carry a single one of the day's small burdens down into sleep with you. The long day is over now, every last piece of it, and you carried it well, and there is nothing left of it to hold or to finish, only the soft dark closing gently around you, kind and safe and yours. Let each slow breath carry you a little further down, past the last of the day's small worries, past the rain and the shadows and the old dark stories, down into the quiet, down into the warmth, down toward the deep and easy rest that is waiting for you now. Let the great dark city grow still and quiet, the rain softening on its streets, the fog rolling gently over its towers, the last light in the last window going dark, the whole vast city settling into the deep quiet of the night. And let all the old stories settle with it, the heroes and the villains, the tragedies and the triumphs, all of them going quiet now, all of them at rest, all of them fading gently into the warm dark along with the day. Let yourself settle too, safe and warm beneath the blankets, breathing slow, drifting down, letting go. There is nowhere you need to be, and nothing you need to remember, and no story in all the world that you must stay awake to hear, for the stories will keep, safe and whole, until you wish to return to them, and there is no hurry now, none at all, only the soft dark and your own slow breathing, carrying you gently down toward morning. Rest now. You have earned this quiet too. Let the far dark city and all its old stories fade into the ordinary, gentle dark of your own room, soft and kind, and yours to sleep in. And there is nothing at all you need to do until morning, but lie still in the warmth and breathe and drift and rest. All the stories are told now, every one of them, and they will keep, safe and whole, in the dark where stories rest, waiting patiently for whenever you wish to return to them. And there is no hurry now, and nowhere else to be, only here, only this, only the soft dark, and your own slow breathing, carrying you gently down. The guardian keeps his watch over the far city, so that you need not keep any watch at all, so that you may set everything down, and let everything go, and simply rest. Sleep well now, and let the gentle dark carry you softly down, all the way down, toward the quiet light of morning. Good night.